have extra pens if
Oh,
anybody.
please,
I
thank you
need
so
one.
much. Oh, here it goes. I got it, thanks.
Okay.
It's a whole rubber band full of things behind you.
So,
Put 'em on the table.
anyway, I just want to thank you guys all for coming and being here on a Saturday morning. So anyway, the purpose of this meeting, we just want to go over that, just to expand communications and increase trust among our board members. Here you go.
I thought it worked, but it didn't, sorry.
Unify the board members around commitment to our mission and goals. Align the board and staff on key strategies aimed at meeting goals. And determine the best operational structure and practices to effectively implement strategies. I just thought to start, it might be nice just to have each of us go around and just say why we got on the board. What was our reason for getting on the board?
Well, I got on the board because of frustrations I felt with the way things were being done, and I had been on the board, as you know, 27 years ago or something. And so I decided, if you're gonna complain, be on the board, run for an office, don't just, so that's what I did. Why I got on the board. And I always also want to see more special needs stuff in the parks and classes and stuff,
Okay.
But that's just mine.
What about you, Pat?
Originally, the city wanted to take this corner and put fire station number 2 there.
Oh, really?
And so that got me involved in the issue of Ridgeville and
Okay.
became more aware of what was going on. But in addition, I knew the employees that worked there were not very conscientious.
Uh-huh.
And so our motivation initially was to restructure the management, basically, because it was brutally incompetent.
Oh, really?
And
Beyond incompetent.
illegal.
It was almost, yeah, it was illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a part criminal who was one of the people that were working there.
Really?
Yeah, so, and it became apparent after a couple of years of getting a little more involved with this issue and the personnel that were there.
Uh-huh.
So
Huh.
our goal was to replace the management, basically.
We should say at our
And-
first board meeting when we got sworn in, the person
She quit.
she quit. And we looked at each other and said,
That was easy.
she quit it when we were sworn in. It was
Oh,
interesting.
you both
two
joined
were
at the
on
same
at
time?
the same time.
We ran together.
Originally.
Oh, you ran together?
Oh,
27.
we didn't know that.
27 years ago?
27
Yeah.
years ago, yeah.
Wow.
So our job had been done the first meeting, and there we sit with 6 years. But there was plenty to do.
Rebuild.
Yeah.
What about you, Dan?
Well, quite honestly, I didn't know Ridgeville existed the first decade or so when I moved here in '92. I can remember recycling, Ridgeville mailers, but I never read them. I do have a bad habit of throwing what I call junk mail. So if it's not a bill or someone I know, I just kind of recycle it. So that was my experience the first 15 years or so in Evanston. Didn't know anything about Ridgeville. Then my pastor approached me, Charlotte, and asked me to kind of look into what she thought was the reduction and almost elimination of full court outdoor basketball in our neighborhood. She had some complaints from neighbors and in our community, and also some people that attend our church about it. And she just asked me, she knows I'm kind of extroverted, so she said, why don't you look into it? So that got me interested. And after a couple meetings with staff at Ridgeville and looking through some of the board meeting minutes, I decided, similar to you two guys, that I was frustrated by what was going on at Ridgeville, what I thought was going on at Ridgeville, and I thought we could do better. And I thought also, just like Debbie, instead of being a whiner or complainer, be part of it, part of the problem solving. So at that time, it would have been 5.5 years ago. There was, I think, 3 seat openings. And so that was the year that Ann and Rob and I think the 3 of us all ran, and it turned out that we were unopposed. So it was a kind of a no-brainer campaign. I don't remember campaigning. But anyway, got on the board then. And And part of my hope was just to make Ridgeville better.
All right, what about you, Rob?
One of the main reasons, I guess, similar to Dan, I'm an extrovert. I was heavily involved with basketball at one of the smaller parks, Reba, and I took it upon myself, along with George Providence, to run a 3-on-3 basketball tournament that nobody probably really remembers or even cares about now, but we served probably, 80 to 100 kids, all between the ages of about 8.5 all the way up to 17. And I didn't know what Brian did or who Ridgeville really was, but I lived right in the neighborhood for, I've been here for 17 years, and I was just kind of like, oh, and George had Brian give us, a couple $100 for a block party that we would have at the end of the tournament. And I keep telling this story, but I guess everybody thought it was Brian who was doing it, and it was me the whole time. And I was like, and we had all these people come out. I've got pictures. I've got tons of just, and kids like Preston DaCosta grew up in the neighborhood, who actually ended up working for his mom was a first generation immigrant from Jamaica, and she had 3 jobs. She's passed away last year, but he's one of our, supervisors at the park. So to me, this was a community thing, and little did I know about Ridgeville until we had the contentious events at Reba Park, where the park was split off and the condo moved in, the neighborhood was gentrifying, and I was going, oh boy. So we had pieces of a little bit of everything. We had faith, you had the faith community involved, you had Ridgeville, which was just this independent park that I didn't know much about, and I said, oh wow. Then I finally sat down with Brian. This was back in the early 90s, and I went, what is this all about? He was like, oh, he explained the park to me, and then one of the people that I met, who was a part of the condo association that was next to Reba Park, got on the board, and I was like, oh my goodness, it was Martha Gaines, and we had this back and forth. We had meetings. Dan had a meeting with her in it, and then I got involved. I was like, oh wow, I need to be a part of, and someone suggested that I think about getting on the board, and that's when I went, oh, and this was my first time running for anything, and then I found out that I was the first ever elected African American on the Ridgeville board.
There was
Who
a
was?
woman. What was her name?
No, Martha McDonald was appointed.
Not Martha McDonald. It was somebody who used to work at,
Judith?
yes, Judith Treadway.
Judith Treadway didn't make it. I'm friends with her. She did not make it on the board. She never
We
made it.
sat with her on the board. She was on the board when
We
I
might
was
have
on the board.
appointed her.
You
Well,
appointed
I
Judith
appointed
Treadway. I'm the first elected. I looked through the books because I was trying to find it since 1939.
Maybe she was appointed.
That's what you just
Oh,
said.
yeah, she was appointed, but elected. So I was like, wow, I'm a pioneer. So anyway, we are here, and I think this has been an education for me, being on the board and understanding the way that this budget works. And I've got some ideas. I'd love to put them out there, but I love it, and I'm trying to make it better.
Great. Yeah, I was thinking about this last night too. I think I initially got on the board because I was talking to Julie earlier. Her kids go to Oakton, and just seeing at Oakton some of the needs of kids over there. There's a lot of low-income kids, and so initially, I think I was really thinking that we could offer programs to kids that need help. So, and also, my kids were involved with some of the camps at Ridgeville. I remember my kids used to do this singing class when they were real young over here, the one that was associated with Old Town School of Folk Music. And I think, just kind of thinking of Ridgeville as a community, like building community here. I think that that's been some of my focus as far as like the farmers market and trying to bring people together. So, next we've got mission, and I thought it would be interesting to look at, when Michael was on the board, you take out this sheet here, we worked on the mission and the vision statements, and we actually changed it from, do you guys have that?
Is that the revision 12315?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a one-sided page, right?
I'm sure. I
Pardon me?
do.
Just a one-sided page.
Yeah, one-sided page. Anyway, when Michael was here, we really worked on a lot of things around policy around the district. I mean, I really think we should really thank Michael for kind of visiting these things. He was really working, he did work hard on sort of forming some real policy initiatives here. Anyway, so on this statement, you can see what we changed it from, and one of the big things was contribute to the health of our citizens, community environment, and opportunities to build community. So our revised mission, the one that is on our website right now, is to enhance the quality of life, to promote a strong sense of community, and contribute to the health of our citizens, community, and environment by providing safe, attractive parks, opportunities to build community, and a diverse, challenging set of arts and recreation programs. So what I thought we could do is maybe break that apart and you just talk about what's important to us as far as going forward. And I brought this whiteboard. I don't know if it was going to work over here, but
Anybody need a refresh copy?
Thank you.
okay, so what I would like to ask is each one of you is what your priority would be on this list. Where do you want to see growth?
I'm trying to read it.
It's all, everything in the mission statement. My
Oh.
handwriting isn't great, but
My eyesight sucks.
I guess, you know, when we were planning for our goals and thinking about moving forward, what is it that's driving us? So I guess I'd like to hear from all of you. What do you want to see in the next year or so happen at Ridgeville?
Equity.
Okay, and what does that mean?
It's a fluid term and it means different things in different cultures, but for me, what it means is equitable access to all services. So regardless of a person's cultural, socioeconomic background, they all have access. It's different than equal. Equitable means giving the resources necessary for those who have less, basically, or aren't as equipped to join. So it's a way to run an organization that tries to meet the needs of all the different types of people in the community.
So you're saying with regards to arts and rec programs, for instance, you'd like to see more equity there?
Right, not just there, but in the board and everything, all aspects of the district.
Okay.
How we operate and who's on the board and who's hired and which programs we have and how people get access to it.
Okay. What about you, Rob?
You know, even before that, I think that's an important point. Safe and attractive parks is
Okay.
really, really important to me. And I think that, for example, we have an opportunity to be creative in the way that we look at our budget for things like, and not to compare us to Evanston Rec Department and Parks and Recreation Department, but when they came to us for an opportunity to at least look at the skate spot idea, which I came up with, I thought it was interesting that they were coming to the table. So our collaboration it's kind of collaboration with the city maybe or other entities, but just ways of I don't know, getting more friends of the park to where we can make the parks more attractive. To me, adding something to one of our bigger parks like a skate spot, 30 by 70, could really enhance the parks and make them more attractive, along with upgrading, you know, the current equipment that we have. When I walk past the parks, I go, man, some of our parks are just flailing because we don't have the income to actually do the upgrades that we need, and just trying to figure out creative ways to just kind of bring our parks up to date. I mean, especially our bigger parks. That's a big concern of mine. So I would put a high priority there,
Okay.
and just being creative that way.
Okay. What about you, Debbie?
Well, my concern or things I'd like to see worked on is being responsible about the residents' tax money, the money that we take in, and
So
being
fiscal responsibility?
fiscal. I couldn't think of the word.
Okay.
Responsibility. And to really deal with what we have now, you know, and the things that need to be considered now, instead of, you know, overlooking that and going into bigger whatever. I think there's lots on the table already that isn't well taken care of.
So as far as programs?
As far
equipment?
as structuring and programs, you know, I think the programs are great. I'm always in fear that we're gonna lose Natalie, so that's what, I don't know how you'd word that, but that's, you know,
Uh-huh. But is fiscal responsibility is probably your biggest thing?
biggest,
Okay.
biggest.
What about you?
That's important to me too, but, you know, I really want to preserve Ridgeville, basically. I mean, the bigger entity of Ridgeville.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's important
Just the
that-
district in
The
itself?
district in
Yes.
itself. And
Uh-huh.
I think, you know, I mean, that's obviously a basic goal. There's a lot of pressure these days about consolidation and issues like that. So I feel we have to provide a value to the community. If we
Uh-huh.
don't do that, we won't exist. And so whether it's fiscal responsibility, whether it's safe and attractive parks, whether it's enhancing our physical environment, whether it's being sure we have a diverse, you know, reach to everybody. I mean, it's a number of issues, and I think our mission statement reasonably takes care of that. But I think preserving Ridgeville is
It's
my
your number
goal.
one priority, okay. And for me, I would say I'm in the side of the programs, the arts and rec programs and building community. So those things are important to me. I feel like we should expand on that and, you know, continue to be a resource and a place for people to be able to spend time. So I'll put my okay, so our vision on this, what we wrote was Ridgeville strives to provide an innovative parks and recreation system that is deeply integrated into the Evanston living experience. I mean, that doesn't really say a lot, and I know a lot of vision statements get a little more in depth than that. And that might be something at, you know, at some other time that we might want to enhance. And then going into values, some of the things that we wrote down were accountability, make the most effective use of Park District assets in an open, transparent manner that engages the public. Partnerships, better the community through partnership with the city and other organizations, which we've done here. Innovation, provide cultural and recreational programs that set unique examples for our constituency and other districts. Diversity, the board celebrates the community's diverse populations of ages, races, religions, and lifestyles, and ensures new programs and events are open to all residents regardless of economic means, disabilities, and our challenges. Sustainability, conserve the natural, human, and physical resources of the district through implementing sustainable practices. So does anyone have anything to say about those things?
I think with accountability, I agree with it 100%. And I think our use of like Facebook and the media is two ways that we can continue to do that. So I appreciate that we're able to do that. I'm glad that we have that as our practice now.
And I think, Pat, you referred to sustainability really in your previous statements.
Yeah.
Just wanting to continue the
Yeah. I don't have-
everything that's going on here.
Yeah.
Okay, so our statement, this is all written in our manual, by the way, so I just, I
Okay,
think it's
right.
good to bring up, and this is actually something that we have had in place. The district shall, within the financial limits set by the board, obtain, plan, develop, and maintain park and recreation resources to serve the varied recreational interests of the district. Recreation programs shall be planned and operated which, while consistent with the district's financial ability, will provide a broad and varied selection of activities to promote and contribute to the health and recreation of our citizens, community, and environment, regardless of age, race, sex, religious, and sexual orientation, and regardless of economic means, disabilities, and other challenges. So does everyone agree with that statement?
Mhm.
Okay, good. Is there anything that we think, is there anybody have any strong feelings about anything that we'd want to change on any of that?
On any of this?
Yeah.
I would like to find a way to get equity into the mission somewhere. And part of that could be as simple as saying something about like, not just our citizens, but something like all our citizens or all our community. I don't know how to word it, but just to be all-inclusive somehow in that mission statement.
We could just put it at the end,
Of the environment, right? Through equity or?
or right at the end, and diverse set of arts and recreations for all of our citizens?
Sure. Well, and not just citizens, but all of our constituency, because Parks and Rec is really for any human being that visits. It could be a homeless person or the mayor, but they don't necessarily have to live here. So it depends how you define citizens, but when I hear citizens, that sounds like a resident, you know. But I think part of our mission really is for anyone who visits, even guests.
Mm-hmm.
So all, that's somehow get all in there.
Would you agree that citizens sounds
think
like residents?
I think citizens covers it personally, but I think everyone's a citizen of the world, so I think it works well. But
I think if you said constituents, it would not mean
right,
everyone.
it would mean
Oh, I
people
agree.
can pay. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But
I think citizens is.
all citizens of the world, I guess, but
How about just
I'm thinking of
all
like just
citizens?
all citizens and visitors, or I don't know how to say it, but I just want to be more inclusive, because when I hear citizens, it sounds like it's a little exclusive. Even people from Chicago could come here.
Economic health of all by
Yeah.
providing safe. I mean, just leave the word citizens out of
Mhm.
all, if that's what you want to achieve.
That's what I was thinking, is maybe all somewhere in there.
It's the word all, not citizens, but, or all citizens, you know. I think nobody would object to that.
Health of all citizens instead of
Well-
our?
Well, I'm getting hung up on the citizen part, so maybe that's just
So
me.
just all.
Just all.
But just
So
all.
maybe for all at the very end?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
For all.
Culture
cultural and recreational programs for all.
Here, I think just at the end, yeah, right?
Yeah, I think at the very end of that. Okay. All right. Okay, so now that we've come up with some agreement on that, we could talk about our goals.
Sure.
So maybe we should just talk about what we've done in the last 2 years first. One of the things that I'm very glad that we've done is partnered with the city for this program over here. So that would be something we can add to our list. What else do people want to?
I think we've added some amazing programs in general.
Uh-huh. Like a lot more classes.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What else has happened here?
Facebook Live?
Facebook Live.
Completed Brummel,
Brummel.
renovation of Brummel playset.
I mean, you want specifics, right? You're
Yeah.
looking for specifics. So I would say the outdoor, what do you call them, the porta potties, I think.
Uh-huh.
And in that also just the renovation of the basketball courts. So there's a lot that goes in there, but part of that is also the removable
Yeah, baskets.
baskets and,
Portfolios, yeah.
Okay.
We found ways to recognize each and every culture within our community. We started out a couple of years ago. I did it during, I didn't know it was going to turn into that, but I'm glad that it has evolved into recognizing everyone. And one of the things we did was we recognized a couple of African Americans during February month, and Natalie took that on since she's been on. Every month it's been recognize community and highlight somebody on our website that's important not only to our community but to the world community as well. So I really appreciated that.
Okay.
We've broadened that.
I think the outdoor theater has been a great success.
agree.
Skating rink has
Yes.
been enlarged and modernized. Yes.
I think role clarification has happened in the 5 years that I've been here.
What do you mean by that?
Just clarifying roles of board members and different staff. It was not as clear to me, and I don't think, even by policy, it wasn't as clear. So I do think there's been clarity over the years about roles, and I think that's healthy for an organization, who does what.
Uh-huh, okay. Anything else?
Are you
What-
referring just to you
In
asked
the
about
last 2 years.
Couple of years, okay.
Yeah.
Did a couple of diamonds, we did a couple of diamonds.
Okay.
Brummel Park was.
Yeah, he's already mentioned that, yeah. Yeah, I think we've done a lot. I mean, I think the board and the staff have done a lot. So going forward, I think, kind of thinking about what we're talking about over here as far as what we said, what were our priorities. What would our priorities be going forward?
I think we talked a year or so ago about, upgrading the art studio to give us more program space.
Uh-huh.
So I think that would be something that we could spend some time on. And I think it's probably even more important now that this facility is getting more use and will probably eliminate some rental possibilities with the fact that this is used 5 days a week. So it might be a time to really, kick up our effort to fix it and, make it more accommodating year-round, basically.
The Cayman House?
The
Art
art
studio.
studio.
Oh, the art studio.
Oh, okay.
Not this, the art studio.
Not
Oh,
this,
okay.
no, the art studio. Because I think it, can be an important asset. It can help programs. It can just be a.
Like it's
If not-
underutilized the way it is now in a way.
It's definitely underutilized. It's
Yeah.
used in the summer, and that's really about it. It doesn't
Uh-huh.
have heat.
Right.
So it's not used in the winter at all.
Okay.
And,
So you're kind of thinking like the current building as it is, not necessarily making a new one, but just as
I'm
what
thinking
we've
the current
got.
building, what we
Let's
have.
fix it up
Fix it up
and make
and-
it four season if we could.
make it for season,
Okay.
make it accommodating to programs, making it accommodating to a rental situation, continue to enhance the outdoor environment, whether it's Shakespeare or whether it's, concerts. I mean, obviously that one room is used for concerts because it houses a stage, and it's, a lot of setup time and, effort needed to do that. So to move that somewhere else would be a challenge probably.
Yeah.
So I think keeping the existing building and just focus on what can we do to improve that asset basically to be more useful for the community.
Okay. Both floors even?
I think both floors, I think the second floor probably, and this is just an opinion, but the second floor is probably more useful for, having a bathroom and having storage space.
Okay.
For whatever's done downstairs or whatever's done outside. I don't think that's gonna be a useful program area. I just assume have it opened up, no rooms, but just an open storage area, and really focus on the downstairs, because that's where kids are gonna use, that's what, people are gonna gravitate to, rather than have a second floor that, is a little bit more challenging, I think.
Does that involve having redoing that bathroom on the bottom that was a public restroom, or is that the bathroom would be in?
Yeah, I think that's a point of discussion, basically, that somebody we could talk about. My gut is it's too expensive to do that, but, it doesn't hurt to talk about it. And
Are there two bathrooms in there?
there's one.
One
Down on the
upstairs.
second floor.
Yeah.
Oh.
With the attachment.
Oh, the one building
There
next
used
to it.
to be,
so-
I think, I'm not
Oh.
100% certain about this, but I've been told that there was a bathroom in there.
Yeah, Rick Schumacher said when he was a kid that they
There was?
used the bathroom in there.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
But I don't know that is how practical that is, so.
And as we explore that, I love that idea, Pat, and I support us focusing on that too. I think there's a lot we can think and plan to do with that existing, building.
Yeah.
And I would like us to explore some relatively inexpensive ways to maybe even extend the outside a little bit for the theater, I'm thinking like a porch or a deck or something, because I have seen some outdoor theaters that use a deck, and it kind of gives the actors more,
Yeah.
Like a balcony.
floor space to use. But it's kind of cheap too. It's not like building a building. It's more like a deck we might put on our house or something, but something like that maybe even. Because right now they're kind of on the ground, right, of the actors?
Well, they built
the
a
most
pad.
part.
There's a concrete pad.
Okay.
On the east side. So they
Okay.
kind of use that as their, kind of the focal point, but they really use the whole area,
Yeah.
as you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I went out to see a theater out in Oak Park. There's a Shakespeare theater that goes on out there every summer. And it was interesting because they had built this new building, but it wasn't really part of the theater. And they had built this whole structure to put on these theater scenes. And it did have different levels and things like that, what you were saying. But, I was thinking the building really helps. I mean, it's nice to have that structure there.
Yeah.
Well, at Blocked Ridge too, which is it's
Oh, yeah,
helpful
yeah.
for the sound and that. I think that's why it doesn't happen on the stage itself, because
much
it's got to have
noise.
some kind of
Yeah,
buffer.
to compete with the,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely loud. Yeah, it's good tucked in there. Okay, so let's move around. What about you, Dan? What would you like to see happen?
Just over the next couple of years.
Yes.
One is what we're doing now, and that is to embrace strategic planning. And there's a whole, science behind it. But I do believe that any organization that wants to grow, and I would hope that we could grow, both in our fiscal and our programmatic, life, there has to be some strategic planning that goes in, and this is part of it as a board. I think it needs to also include our staff, so be another aspect of strategic planning to make sure that we're aligned, our board and our staff. So at a minimum, I would like to repeat this kind of a thing where we can talk like this without business in front of us and plan. And maybe that's once a year, once every 2 years, I don't know, but I think it's healthy.
Okay. All right, Rob?
Well, I got a few things on my mind. Namely, just how do we go into the future? I mean, I got one more year on the board. How do we go into the future of Ridgeville? It's interesting that Pat's been here, 28 plus years or 27. I think I'm right on that. Debbie's been around for a long time. I always think in terms of the next generation and the board and having people on the board with diverse ideas and identities and so on. I also think about how that relates to where we're at with employees and, with the future. I mean, we've had Brian, who's been here for 25 years or 26 years. We've got Anna Christina, who's been here a very long time, and just what the future looks like in terms of how the park is structured. I know that in the past 30 years, and maybe prior to that time that Pat was referring to, at one time there was 2 people working those jobs. And in fact, I knew one of them because he works part-time at Crown Trophy. His name is Michael Johnson, but he used to work here. And I was asking him, I was like, wow. I was like, you worked here? And how did that work out? He's like, well, we had somebody who handled the grounds, and then we had someone who handled the programming. And I thought that was a very interesting dynamic, and I think that was prior to the time that even Pat was talking about, where that other regime was in place that took over. So he was telling me about a time where they had softball. There was, softball leagues, and I was like, what? So I wanted to hear more about that and just making, our fields more useful. Like, we got this big park at Elks Park. And one of the ideas is that was brought up maybe even a year ago when we were just kicking around ideas was a band shell. You had seen that at another park, and just how that could, be part of an entertainment kind of complex that maybe does theater, that maybe does something else. But that side of town does not get a whole lot from us. Elks Park. There's a lot of kids around there. There's a lot of services that they don't have. For example, the city of Evanston does not have a whole lot. You were mentioning the kids from Oakton. Dan's doing something in a month or so with his school, which half of the kids live on one side of the tracks.
A third,
which, the Ridgeville side, I call it, on the other side, or on the other side of Chicago Avenue. I'd love to see more programming at Elks, and not just putting somebody in the park and going and just kind of monitoring the park. And in my opinion, that's my opinion. Sorry if I step on anybody's shoes there. 2, I have been wanting, and I'm a basketball guy. I mean, I can write out a program and go, this is how I want it to go, but I didn't want to do that. I was like, we have someone in staff that I recommended who is a constituent, who works at Ridgeville and runs the park. He's homegrown. He is a science teacher at King Arts. He is a all-state basketball player. This guy knows basketball like the back of his hand. I'd love to see that guy run a program. And he's been waiting for the opportunity to run something to where it's like got kids going. We can't, in my opinion, and this is just with basketball. With what we have, we got a couple courts, we've got the space. We should have an all-out, more than 3-day, or 2-day, or half-day basketball tournament. I think we can do so much more there, and I'd love to see that thing drawn out to where Northwestern is involved. So I want to see that fleshed out. And last on my list, I'm sorry, we're visioning here. Last on my list is to get buy-in from everybody on the board about, enhancing our, particularly Leiter Park, and adding or even Cayman. It's just a 30 by 70 strip, a skate spot, not a park. It's just a place for skateboarders to skateboard. And I don't know how that brings down the quality of life. I don't know how that brings down the value of property, but Glenview, Niles, Winnetka, they all have them. And they have a big one. And I just want a little strip. And I would love to see that come to fruition at some point, whether I'm on the board or not. I'm done. Sorry.
For me, I would like to see additional programs offering here at the main building, and also, I like your idea of redoing the studio to add programming. I think, to do that, I think we should be strategic about it. Like if we're going to spend $5,000 for whatever we're going to spend at the art studio, we need to have something thought about. Like, are we going to offer some winter arts classes, for instance, or just other offerings, which would make it worth it to have that. But I do still feel our facilities are underutilized. I think I agree with Rob that, I'd like to see more programs at Elks Park. I'd like to see more programs, sports programs, really. I think we're, we lend out the fields to different people. They come and, EBSA is going to use it for a little bit. We do actually have a soccer program starting this spring, which I think is great. I think that's a great step in that direction. So for me, I think programming and adding to that would be my goal.
I like the idea of adding to programs, but what I would really like us to be mindful of is that these parks are open green space for families and people to come and picnic and fly kites and do whatever they want. And I don't want to see so many programs that kids that don't want to play basketball or don't want to do arts or don't come to the park because there's nothing for them. They can't just be in the park with several friends or their family. And I want to be really mindful of that. And I really think that we need to be, we need to understand our money. I know I keep harping on that, but I think we have to understand, not have our own agendas for things, because money is not just, unlimited. It's not. And I really want to see the art studio done. It seems like we've been talking about it. And I do see that would create more space for so many programs, winter programs,
The renovation like Pat talked about.
Yeah.
Would support that.
Not a whole new building, but
Right.
renovation within our budgetary
Yeah.
confines.
Okay.
Okay.
That's one thing we're all 100% on board with. Sounds like.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah, why don't we talk about
Right?
that? That seems to make
let's
more
go with
sense than, that's it, like the real things that we have going on. Why don't we talk about it?
I would not be opposed to talking about the art studio.
Yeah.
I think we could talk about that next if you'd like.
Yeah.
But I just want to add that for me, in response a little bit, Debbie, to what you're saying is, to me, this is why strategic planning is fruitful, can be fruitful, because when you get this kind of a discussion going, you find out where there is common ground, and when we do collectively put all our resources together, things happen, and that's how you strategically grow. If we don't do that as a board, in my opinion, we'll be stagnant and things won't grow. So that's the idea.
See, I guess I come from a different place. My feeling is that let's get done what we've been talking about. Let's talk about the art studio. Let's talk about the proposed budget. Let's talk about stuff like that. I mean, out of respect, I definitely talk about this and want to talk about this, but to me, it's more, okay, and then we'll leave here and nothing will be done about the art studio again. That's how I feel. But that's just me. I think we've been talking about the art studio a long time. I've never heard anybody say they don't want to do it. So let's do it. Let's talk about it.
Well, let's talk about what programming we'd want to see there.
I'd like to see some winter programs in there.
Uh-huh.
I'd like to see that to be a place that could be rented out for birthday parties. Because this, I don't think you can do that anymore in here because there's too much other people's stuff.
Can we just
It
take
would
one?
be different.
Can we just take one step back, because I want to clarify. I'm not sure, Debbie, if you and I are agreeing or disagreeing. So I just want to clarify. Are you saying that? I mean, if I hear you right, you're saying you'd like to see some concrete action.
Yeah, I'm tired
instead
of all
of
the
just
talking.
talking.
Yeah.
Right? And I agree with you on that one. So we're not apart on that. But all I'm saying, and I don't know if you agree or disagree with me, is that there's a need for process before we get there. And that's what we're doing now. There needs to be some
I
strategic
understand
planning.
you're really into process and I respect that, but I'd like to see things get done. So let's just talk about the art
Yeah,
studio.
and just in my opinion, the process too in strategic planning, it's partly the budget. So when we're talking about
Yeah.
the budget, we're talking about strategic planning. We're talking about where to put our resources. So if we talk about a skate park, you talk
It's
about.
not skate park, you have to
Okay,
make
well,
sure
I
terminology is
just threw
correct,
something out.
skate
You
spot.
You talk about anything.
Not-
You talk about any
Okay.
improvement, any enhancement, a new basketball court or whatever. You're doing that partly within the budget process. So I think spending time on that,
Is-
on the budget, we're talking about increasing the program directors to full-time. So that part and parcel of increasing recreational programs. So it sort of goes together.
Yeah.
It doesn't get us, let's throw a lot of ideas on the table, but it gets us specific. Okay, we've got a program director that our director, Brian, is talking about hiring full-time. That's a discussion point I think we should be discussing, because that sets the tone for, a year from now, some of the goals that, we have. So again,
Well,
I think that process
I
is
think
in-
what my feeling about this process is the process is getting to the budget, not the budget driving what I think
Okay,
we're going to
let's-
decide if we're going to have a full-time program director in these conversations. We need to get to that point where we really agree on that.
So let's talk about that.
Okay.
Well, let's
Well-
talk about the art studio first, because
Okay,
that's where we were
I'm for
first.
that.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that, where you could rent it for little kids' birthday parties all year, like an art party or something. I'd like to see winter art classes in there. I'd like to see a special needs class, but that's something I talked to Natalie about,
Uh-huh.
because I'm even willing to volunteer time to run it or whatever, but I'd like to see that that is a perfect space because it's
Ground level.
Yeah.
You're thinking like
it's
fine
good.
arts and theater arts, all the different arts programming?
Yeah, I personally was thinking about kids and special needs kids and art, crafts and that kind of stuff, but all of the arts,
Yeah.
fine arts, everything.
Yeah, could be an arts building.
Whatever, just make it usable, more usable than it is now.
Have you ever been to Gather? Have you ever been to that
No,
place?
you were,
Well, we
no.
just happened to go there yesterday with.
Is that up in
it's-
Wilmette?
It's on Davis. But it's a
Oh,
small-
yeah, I've seen it. I've never been in there.
But it's a small area, and I don't know a lot about it because we just took the kids there. And but they had language stuff, and they have special, half hour a day, different stuff. And it was, and it's not a big space. it's a little bigger than the art studio. And it's like 3 sections of it.
It's called The Gather?
Gather.
Just Gather?
Just Gather, yeah. And it's been there for 5 years, and honestly, I didn't
Really?
know about it
Wow.
until my daughter told me about it.
I mean, that's something concrete. All of us could commit to just visit once
Yeah,
and
just
look at
visiting
it.
because it's got art
Yeah.
stuff, it's got some play stuff, it's got Legos, but it's really sort of targeted for the younger, under 5, I think. I'm not even
Which is
sure.
a huge part of our population.
Yeah.
It is,
Yeah.
it is.
Well, I was talking earlier, my kids used to do this Wiggle Worms class that they offered upstairs in the studio, and
It was a good
they
class.
loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, those kinds of programs, I think, would be great in that. But, they're also great in the studio upstairs.
When it's so, yeah. But this would give us another place to add on,
Right. I guess
Oh, you mean the studio upstairs in the art building?
in the main building.
Main building, okay.
Yeah.
How much square footage is that? Does anybody know offhand?
The current,
Yeah, square footage of the art studio.
I don't think it's 500 square feet. 25 by 25.
I'm just curious, that's all.
It's very small.
Yeah.
I guess I think it really works well for arts because it's already set up for arts.
Yeah.
Are
There's
you
a
guys familiar
sink.
with Open Studio Project? Yeah, I mean, something
It's
like that.
also
could
nice
work
to
in
have
there.
something that's on ground level that kids that can't go upstairs,
Yeah, like handicapped kids. Right.
you, Ann, didn't you have an architect friend that donated some drawings and ideas for that space? Was that a different building or using the same
No,
building?
she actually she did some drawings and measurements of that space. And one of the things that we really talked about was storage. Like, how do you creatively store stuff in there? And she had some good ideas with moving closet doors and, places to store chairs, for the outside stuff. And I think some of those improvements would help too, just because then you don't have like just stuff laying around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because part of a concrete step that we're doing is visit the Gather. I'll commit to that just to see what they've
Yeah,
got
to see
and
what
talk
they
to
got,
their
yeah.
director. And there could be some very easy things that we could implement at this space. The second thing we could do is, before maybe our next board meeting, is have some facts about the square footage and what's currently there, what's functional that's in there. And I don't know, is there heat, is there
There's
any
no heat.
water?
There's
No
air
heat, that's
conditioning,
part
but
of
there's
it.
no heat.
But that kind of list for us, just here's the square footage, here's what's currently working. And then we need to,
I think Brian
as
got an estimate on the heat.
Yeah,
as a
he
concrete
did.
step, is
I
we need
remember
to
$5,000, yeah.
have somebody give us some rough estimates of what it would take to make it 4 season. So I don't even know what that is, but it probably will be heat, a bathroom renovation perhaps, if it's not too expensive. Maybe some demo, right? I don't know what's upstairs, but some
Just a
stuff
bunch
needs
of
to come
rooms.
out
There's an
maybe, I don't
apartment
know.
before, so there's rooms, there's several,
Yeah.
closed-in
bathroom.
areas, there's a bathroom, there was a kitchen.
Right.
If nothing else, you just kind of open that up and get rid
Yeah.
of those appliances
Agreed.
and,
That could be
Gets
great.
junk out of there,
With
you
the,
know.
Junk out of
the
there.
setup for the theater is that everything's on that side, like the furnace, for instance, is on the side
It's on
of the stage, which isn't ideal. I mean, if there'd be any way we could change that.
well, maybe
to-
that could be moved if you're putting new heat
Yeah.
in, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Right.
guess that was one of the things we thought, because you could then have a door, a much more accessible door coming into
Into
the
the
space.
space, yeah.
Because there's a door there.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Would you guys feel comfortable with asking Brian to explore that and just give us
Well, I
some
think,
facts?
yeah, we
or-
get some specifics,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, what are we trying to accomplish and, yeah.
Because that
And
would
we
help us our
put-
next step,
Did we put
right?
5,000 aside for that, or was there more than
I
that?
thought it was 5,000, looking back in my notes, but
So 5,000
I
is
could
just
be-
really gonna cover the heater.
yeah, it won't redo a bathroom,
No,
I can tell you that from experience.
If you kept the existing bathroom and you did, I'm sure it would cost at least 20 grand. I mean, you're not gonna do stuff, you're gonna
Right.
fix up the room so it's more attractive. You
Right,
gotta
right.
Clean that up.
Right.
Maybe redo the floor. I think there was some issue with the floor because it might have been a garage at one time.
Right.
It was,
So
right.
it's probably got a pitch to it. But, the walls would have to be redone and it just have to
Yeah.
be more inviting and,
But that would be some concrete steps, I think, Debbie, that we could take instead of just talking about it, but to give us some facts, so at next board meeting we could have.
Perfect. So
If it's
we'll
not-
have Brian bring
if
that
there's
to the
enough time
next
for him to
board
do
meeting
that.
and
Yeah, I don't
discuss
know,
it really
I
as
wouldn't
a
put the pressure of, it's
real
gotta be
process.
done in 3 weeks, but this.
Next
we
couple
want
months,
done,
or-
You know?
But I think at the same time, we need to go and talk about what programming could be there and
Yeah.
how that looks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
but again, you're sort of the chicken and the egg. I mean, if
Right.
you're committed to do the space,
Do
and
it.
Natalie knows that we're committed to do that space within a reasonable period of time, then she should be thinking about and suggesting,
Yeah.
or we should
Yeah.
be suggesting.
No, we should be
ideas.
suggesting
Yeah,
that,
whatever, yeah.
that is something that we want to see hand in hand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what we
like,
want for
Right,
the
like
but
space.
Debbie's art toddler idea,
Yeah.
the gather thing, and then the
Handicapped,
theater
but
stuff.
she'd be a good one to suggest the actual programs.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
she knows what
Because
people
she
are
knows what
interested in.
goes, and she knows what teachers are around, and she knows what space is needed for,
Yeah, I think too, we, she and Brian need to be cognizant too of what's going on at Crown over the next
Yeah.
couple of years. I think we have to sort of incorporate that a little bit in our thinking.
Right,
because
right, we
that's
have to
40
complement it,
We have to
not,
complement it,
yeah.
I don't want to compete with them.
Right.
That's a $45 million
Yeah, we
facility that
can't.
we're all going to probably see in our tax bill at some point. So I don't want to compete with them, but we should just complement whatever they do or
Good
don't do,
idea.
you know?
In fact, I was contacted by someone that's involved with that project recently and wanted me to get more involved, and, but also people at Ridgeville,
Mm-hmm.
just to, just like you said, kind of complement and understand, really.
Yeah.
I think a library is going in there for
A
one.
I
library's
thought
going
it
in there, and
wasn't.
it's a
Is
major
it going in? I
facility.
thought it
Oh,
was.
it's gonna be
It
beautiful.
is?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, I mean, the library is going in. I think, my understanding is that the library has a separate budget than the city's, other funds, and so they were able to get more money by putting in a library. So that's one part of the reasoning for doing both, but also just to have a South library. But I think, for me, I want to see if we're going to do these things. I don't want this $5,000 furnace sitting there all winter and nobody in there. I mean,
Well, yeah, but,
Yeah.
yeah, I think once Natalie knows it's being done, she'll start planning programs and putting out she can't do that if the space isn't there.
True.
So I
true.
think that's number one to do.
It's not just Natalie, but that's also Brian as well.
Well, she's the program director, so
Well, it's
that's
really
why I
all
was
of
saying
us.
Natalie.
I mean, that's part of the collaboration. It's, she's the one that makes the decisions, of course, but I think all of us can bring in ideas like the Gather or other theater ideas. I don't know, but all of us should be collectively getting the word out. We want to invest and fix up this building for arts.
And she's very receptive. I sent her
Yeah.
an idea on a program, like they were doing some container gardening over at the Ecology Center the other day. She's like, oh yeah, it's a great idea, maybe we can do that.
And she usually
know.
follows
Yeah, she's
through,
very
is my
receptive to
experience.
whatever's
Yep.
thrown out there.
Yep.
Yeah, so, anyway, I mean, I think we should just let it know that, that's something that we'd like to see happen.
That we're gonna see happen.
Yeah.
And my takeaway from our discussion on this particular arts building goal is that we're all gonna, whoever can, take a look at the Gather. We are all going to explore arts ideas like Debbie's for toddler art.
Well,
We're
I
all,
think- okay, go ahead.
we're all going to think about our community and how we could complement whatever's going on there, like the Crown Center, to make sure we're not duplicating, we're not gonna put a skate rink in there. But if we do like an arts thing, then what does that mean for different theater companies? Mudlark would have it, exploring with different groups that might be able to give us good ideas. And what I feel like is one of the biggest concrete steps is we're gonna ask somebody, probably Brian, to really look at the current building and give us some facts in the next couple months on square footage, what's currently there. I mean, I know we did a walkthrough, I just can't recall how bad it is. So, what's it gonna take to fix up our current building? And Pat might be right, it's a $20,000 bill, but let's break that down a little bit and figure out, well, there's steps we could do towards that. If we do have $5,000 in our budget, maybe there is something we could start with this fiscal year. And then next year, another $5,000, I don't know, but we could at least take steps, like Debbie said, towards fixing it up. And that's pretty concrete, I think, for that project.
But I mean, we are in our budget process, so this is something, do we want to put 5,000 next year towards that?
I thought that had been,
I thought he put something in there. But,
I-
you
I know there's
about
something in
10
this
grand.
year's.
There's some, yeah,
It's in the current year, I mean, we've got 5,000 right now,
yeah.
Yeah,
but I don't know that we have anything going forward.
In the
In the-
18-19
Yes,
budget, yeah.
yes, so I think, these are things that we kind of need to think through. So if
Yeah.
we really think this is what's gonna happen.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's not like 6 months from now we need to think about this, it's like
Right.
now.
Yeah, that's why the budget process in some ways is important to do before we have the big discussions. Because if we only have X amount of money, whether we want it or not.
well, that's where
Right,
you,
exactly.
Debbie, that's
Yeah.
where you and I disagree, though. I just want to explain why. And I don't think we're that far apart, actually. You are correct, we can't spend more than what we have, and I agree with that. That's the budget limits. But part of strategic planning and collaborative partnerships with other groups, it can bring in more money and grow your budget. That doesn't mean it's immediate, but like next year, let's say we get another partner, we just had Parks and Recreation this year. Maybe even next year, they might even add more. I don't know what their plans are at the city, but it's that kind of relationship that could grow our budget. That's my hope. And so thinking about this kind of strategic planning for the arts program, for instance, there might be some grants out there in our community, and if we get the word out, people might get a hold of us and say, hey, did you know we've got a specific grant? You guys should apply for that. Well, all of a sudden, we got $5,000 that pays from a grant for next year. So that's what I'm saying, is that's how you grow a budget. I think it's possible.
And that is a concern that I have about next year's budget, in that I don't think we have a lot of room for capital projects as the budget is currently laid out. So, as it's currently laid out for next year. So, I mean, that is an issue, I think, going forward. With what we have.
Well, I think too, yeah, you've got some capital expenditures probably that are gonna happen, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really see any real line items for any of that stuff at this point.
well, what do we wanna see? What would we wanna see in the next budget for, let's
The art
just say,
studio.
do we want 10 grand? to
Well,
Yeah, I
kick
think
it off?
probably at least.
Okay. Well, then I think
Because if we've
that's
got
what we
5
need to-
this year, then we could do the furnace, and then,
Another fact, yeah.
another 10 probably.
Yeah, I'm sure we could use as much as we could.
I think
But I don't know
there's
where
some
it's coming
left-
from.
There's some
Right.
left over, there's some left over from Brummel, so there
There
is
is.
money that hasn't been spent yet, that
Right.
we've already put in capital. So there is money, but, that takes sitting down with Jerry and Brian and, kind of going through exactly that. But I think if we get the broad brush
Yeah.
and say, let's say, we want to have 10,000 in next year's budget for the art studio.
And then work toward that.
Then we ought to just make sure that we've got that. Can we get more from last year that we haven't spent for Brummel yet?
Perhaps,
Right.
Because
right?
there was some moving around of money that, that's how this happened,
Yeah.
by
Right.
taking $6,000 from something else, so. I think it's doable, if we got the broad brush and say, okay, 10 grand is a good number, get some heat, get some cleanup, get some, focus on it to begin the process. I think it's, probably something that's,
And I was under
gets
the
going.
impression that we needed to spend 5 of it this year.
That it won't roll over, you mean,
So
in
then,
terms
then
of?
maybe you get the heat going and,
Yeah.
figure out
I
where to
mean,
put the heat. and-
That's what I'm not quite sure about. I mean, sometimes Jerry's able to kind of like, okay, we can put this in capital and move it over. And,
Right.
But I get the sense that when you say this is going to happen this year, it should happen this year.
And that would be a concrete step for us at our next board meeting, because Jerry will be there and Brian, and just ask them specifically, maybe beforehand, to give us an idea of, can we spend 5,000 on the arts this year? And
Right.
can we put 10,000 into our budget for next year for the art building? And you're right, they would know, right?
Sure, or we want to spend 10,000, and we want to spend 5,
Yeah.
However, how do we make that
Yeah.
work, basically?
Yeah.
That's what you-
Right.
Right.
So that might be a change in what this budget reflects
Correct.
right here.
yeah. Which I think this is changeable in any way we want, basically.
Yeah.
And
Right.
this is just something that you put together for us
The
to
starting point,
Discuss.
right?
start
Yeah.
and discuss, and it's earlier than it generally is, so there's nothing wrong with that, because we've got 3 months
Yeah.
left in our budget year this year.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a
Right.
good time to be talking about this.
But definitely, I would hope that could be part of our agenda at the next board meeting.
Okay.
And are we still talking about goals, or?
Yeah,
I want to lift up Rob's skate spot thing. My takeaway from Rob's sharing about his goals, what's most important, he hopes, is the skate spot. That's what I heard. I mean, I also heard him talk about grow summer programs and additional programs, and using more of Elks Park. But skate spot is way up there at the top. So, given that, for me, I think a skate spot would be a blast to have if we could afford it. So I get the budget part.
Thank you.
I totally do, and I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to be. I mean, that's important. We can't spend more than what we have. I get that. But for a skate spot goal to move forward, it wouldn't be this year because we don't have the money. But next fiscal year, I don't know. We don't have the money. But could we at least, as a board, acknowledge Rob's interest? I know I'm part of that interest too, and just ask for. I don't know if we call it a committee or a small group of people, maybe a board member and Brian, to honestly and strategically find out what that means. I don't know anything about skate spots. I did visit the one in Lincolnwood, is it?
Yeah, like
Down by the mall on McCormick.
12,000 residents.
Yeah, and I spent about an hour there and talked to some of the neighbors there. And it was a small, like this, the way you described it, a small thing, in a park and by residential homes. And I specifically asked some of the mamas that were there with little ones what they thought, and they loved it. And it is bringing kids and adults into the park and using it in a constructive way instead of using their skateboards in the street. But what I don't know is how much that costs, what was their process. Rob, I think, sent us some of the details from their city on how that happened, and maybe if our board agrees to it, we could at least re-examine how they did it, take a look at some of that PDF of their plans and what that possibly could mean for our park district. And part of the strategic planning for the skate spot, I'm committed to raising money for that skate spot, whatever it costs, recognizing that it is an extra cost. So that said, I would ask us to, as a board, to please think about the possibility of making this a goal for us to help realize this if we can afford it and if we feel like the community would like it.
So you've expressed an opinion, I'm going to express mine,
Yeah.
so we don't have any misunderstanding. I am not in favor of a skate spot in any of Ridgeville parks. This is a city of Evanston. We have to look to, and in my opinion, the city of Evanston, if the city is interested in a skate spot, they should take that over. They're spending $45 million on Crown Park. There's plenty of land there. That would be a great spot, more centrally located for the city of Evanston. Again, I'm okay with helping the city of Evanston and partnering with them, but I don't think Ridgeville needs to take the lead in doing a skate park. I think the city of Evanston should take the lead. That's a commitment that's going to be $50,000, $100,000, whatever it is. And I think there's other resources that we have that should be directed to something that we can control and that makes sense for our parks, our limited parking our area. So I'm not interested in a committee. I'm not interested in being involved in it. I'm not interested in Ridgeville promoting it. And while I respect the fact that you think it's a good idea, I don't. And simple as that. I don't think we need to, you've got it in my opinion, and I'm not going to support it on Ridgeville land.
I feel like I'm not supporting it on Ridgeville land either. I think you should take it to the city of Evanston. We have a limited amount of green space. Don't tell me it's this big, I don't care. I don't want any more green space taken up for something that only a few kids can use of a certain age. You're talking about inclusiveness and equity and all that,
Your special needs can't go on there. Your young kids don't go on there. A kid who's not really good at it isn't gonna go in there. There's a reason, I think, that the city of Evanston doesn't have one. I really believe there must be. I don't know, but I think there must be a reason. I'm concerned about insurance. I'm concerned about, I just think we're too small a park district. That's not the kind of stuff we need to take on. I wouldn't be in favor of putting a swimming pool in either, even if we had the money, you know? So I also don't want to serve on any committees, or, I think we have so much we have to do. And in the whole scheme of things, we have so little green space, really, in the whole story of Evanston. So that's,
A question I have, since this is part of strategic planning, and I think this is healthy, and I appreciate you guys being transparent about, your opinions. Honestly, that's important. Would you be against, Rob and I exploring this further to see and get some facts, like cost and size, and kind of regurgitate what Lincolnwood did to find out what they did? I can't remember what they did, but
well, I'm not going to tell you not to do something, but I am not in favor of it. So when the vote comes down, or whatever's going to happen, I'm going to vote against it. So I don't care if you do the research or you don't, because I don't think it's a good plan for our parks.
right, and that's not quite my question, though.
Well,
My question was, I get your vote, I get it, but I'm just asking for, if we were to go ahead and look at this and explore it and give the board, officially some information about a skate spot, would you listen to that?
I just think it's misleading
Yeah.
that, you would do that when you know there's not a consensus, and it misleads the public that, that there's support to do that on Ridgeville land, when there isn't not a consensus on the board to do that. So I would prefer, if there was a consensus, if that's a good idea, that would be not a problem. But I would prefer you focus on the city of Evanston doing a skate park that incorporates to the 75,000, people in Evanston versus, the 28,000 that live in Ridgeville. Because this is something that Evanston does not have, and it would be an amenity for some. Let it be spread. Let that burden of cost be spread out over the entire city, not
Right.
over the residents of
I
Ridgeville.
hear you, and I guess my question then it really is, and this is part of our goal setting, is do we have to have consensus on goals? Now, I do believe, out of respect for any group of people that are sitting down trying to discern vision or mission or how to operate, there, of course, will not be consensus on a lot of stuff. And that's good democracy. That's how it makes us better, to wrestle with stuff in a respectful way. So in a case like this, even though we don't have consensus, that still, in my opinion, could be a very healthy way to operate. I don't think we need consensus for everything. We certainly can't do anything expenditure-wise, right? Or programmatic-wise, unless we all agree, at least 3 out of 5. I know that's the case. But in a case like this, we've got at least 2, elected commissioners who believe there is support for a skate spot.
Just as Debbie said, you
So
can
that's
do
my
it.
question, is like, I want to be clear and transparent, is if we were to go forward and just look at this without taking any action, and then give you information back, like a report to the board at some point. I don't know how long it would take.
I think it just dilutes our resources,
Yeah.
basically. Our time, it's effort, and it's
Energy.
kind of not a useful use of our time, basically, from my perspective. I would rather be doing something that I think is doable and that can be agreed upon as a consensus, than devoting hours and other resources and, frankly, money that might go somewhere else, a better program, So, but you're free to do whatever you want.
Well, sure, and I know that, of course, but part of what I think we're meeting in the value of having strategic planning like this in a very intimate way, not with business in front of us, is so that we can wrestle with some of the stuff that we do disagree with. That's all. And so I just want to make sure that if I go forward, I don't know what Rob wants to do, but I'm interested in doing some work on it, not using any finances or anything, but just trying to find out what it would mean and report back. I just want to be honest with you, so I'm interested in doing that, but I wouldn't want to offend you per se, or say, like, do it behind your back. I want to be upfront about it.
Just so people understand this, whatever. You're free to do
Yeah,
what you want to do.
what you're gonna
It's
do,
just-
but it is not a consensus of the board.
Right.
And the community needs to know that.
And what?
And the community needs to know that also
So
for
Debbie,
the,
what does that mean when you say that? It
well,
sounds like
when
there's-
people come up and say, I hear Ridgeville, which people have done, I hear Ridgeville's putting in a skate park,
skate park.
a skate thing.
We're putting in a skate
thing.
park?
That was told. I
I
mean,
was told by who? I mean,
Cicely told me that you told her that Ridgeville was gonna put in a skate park.
Debbie, I really appreciate you saying that, because I had a conversation with Cicely.
Yeah.
She's an alderman.
Right.
In the ward
This was
that
before
happens to
she was
be-
elected.
Happens to be Ridgeville.
Okay, so,
I appreciate that. Yeah, I did talk to Cicely. She's a
that's
elected
fine.
official.
I'm just saying that I think, and I said to her, I know there's not a consensus of the board, and as far as I know, those plans are definitely not made. And,
I never said.
you
I
just
said-
asked me what that meant to me, and so I was explaining.
Okay.
I'm not, you don't have to defend what you said or didn't say. I realize I'm just telling you what I mean by
Okay.
the community needs to know that this is not a full board energy to put in a skate thing.
And
So,
in the spirit of
that's
what,
all I'm saying.
In the spirit of what Dan was talking about, what if a large majority of the community actually wants it, or wants us to move forward with something like this? Let's say we vetted it, and how would you feel about it then?
I would feel about letting the community know what my issues are as a board member.
Okay.
Which is good. I feel that's good, Debbie.
I don't think I think we're just going over the same thing here over
Well,
and
I would
over.
like to just add something too,
I-
though, as far as just the ability to do some of these things. I think that I worry about, kind of on a budget level, just the upkeep, like Lighter Park. I mean, that equipment is old, and it's not in the territory for the community block development grants.
Right.
So, overall, we need to kind of figure out, like, how we're going to upkeep
What we
up to date
have.
what we have. And so, I mean, I think there's questions about the way we're budgeting in that regard. And it's a responsibility that we have regardless of what else we do here. So, and I guess also I'd like to say that I'm not opposed to exploring these ideas. I think that, like you were saying, the equipment, I mean, that something like that is age related. Well, the tot lot is age related.
Yeah.
And a certain amount of kids go on the, equipment for a tot lot. It's, all types of things in parks. I mean, there's different age groups that enjoy different parts of the park. So, I don't think it would be horrible to explore different possibilities. And there might be some funding out there.
Right.
I mean, I think what we need to realize is that I don't know that we can do this alone. I mean, I think, we can maybe repair a couple of swings and, but to do a $60,000 renovation of Lighter Park just for the equipment over there,
Right.
we don't really have the money.
Yeah, that's right. So that's some concern,
Yeah.
definitely, that we're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why I think every bit of money really should go to what we have, keeping it up.
Well, or I find other sources for money.
Right.
Good luck.
Well, I had pretty good luck this
Especially in this time of-
I had pretty good luck this year. I wear different board hats, and one of those is with Chicago Voyagers, and I was able to raise $100,000 for them this year from local folks, and here in Evanston. And I also was able to put in a grant to Evanston Community Foundation for them in a collaborative effort between YOU and Chicago Voyagers. And we'll find out in the next 2 weeks whether we got it, but we put in for an $18,000 grant. And if we get that grant, I found somebody who would match that. So that will turn into, almost 40,000 a year for ETHS kids that are in trouble. And it looks like if that grant goes through, it'll be replicated the next couple of years. So just my own experience is that, given the freedom to find people who want to invest in projects, it's very real, it's very possible, in my opinion. That's my experience just this last year. And Ridgeville Park District is I think, a really great asset. And I do think that with the right collaboration, even if there's not consensus, but with the open communication like we're doing now, that's the kind of process, I think, that some investors want to invest in. They would be happy to. And I feel confident if we come up with some projects, I'm very open to supporting the need for financial fundraising for projects that have a good shot of happening. So.
Yeah, one of the things I asked Brian to provide for us today is just a couple of grants that he's applying for. He did. In Natalie, he did give us a paper on that. And the OSLED grant apparently is suspended for this year.
Right,
Because Illinois doesn't have any money.
right.
But also the Evanston Community Foundation, it's not a huge grant, but $5,000. But I also talked with him about possibly approaching Presence Healthcare, which is right in the neighborhood. So, and I don't know if it would make more sense to approach them with a certain project in mind. I mean, healthcare, it could be health related. But I do think that we need to kind of step outside the box a little bit because, I just feel like I'm frustrated over the years about our limitations in that way. And I think it's, some of these parks, we don't have the opportunity for those types of grants. So, I think that should be a real priority that we should have.
So in terms of
Of
a priority is seeking
outside money, yeah.
And who's going to do that? I mean, is Brian going to do it? Is Natalie going to do it? Are you going to do it? Dan going to do it? I mean,
Well, I think
I
Brian
think-
could do that.
I don't, yeah.
I mean, I'm used to writing grants. I think there's a lot of people in our community that are pretty darn good at writing grants. And if we were to open our doors a bit and invite people in, and it's fun, I think people will do it. And especially if it's a good project for the community.
And so are you speaking of a particular project, or you're
Just in general, in any of our projects, let's say the art house, for instance. Let's say that, I don't know, I'm just throwing this out. Let's say it really ends up costing $100,000 somehow, if we did what we wanted to do with it. Well, I'll bet you, that's a fun project. I'll bet you we could raise $100,000 beyond our current, tax levy funding. That's a cool thing. But it takes some, board effort, and it does take some staff effort, but it's not on them to do it. That's part of our job to raise money too, I think. One of my roles as a board member in any organization I'm with is to do that, tell the story and find people who want to partner with us to invest in
So
it.
it is okay to accept outside money?
That's
Well,
what I
we-
was gonna ask, is it legal?
Well, also we have the foundation, and we can work
Foundation,
through the
okay.
foundation.
Yeah.
And that's one of the
That was
reasons
my
why,
understanding,
that's
okay.
one of the reasons
Okay.
why Mike created the foundation, was to be able to apply for grants outside of the district.
Are they limited on what they can accept?
For a non-for-profit, public,
Yeah, I'm just asking, I don't know. so.
Well, they have a cultural arts focus, and so I would think that, you kind of have to write a grant that's going to be more in line with that. But, I think things can expand, but I think there's a way to do it, that's what I'm saying.
And a point of clarification, and if we don't have consensus on this, I would ask us to get our legal opinion from corporate, but I'm 99.9% sure of the answer. Anyone who wants to donate to our park district may. That doesn't mean they get a tax deduction.
They could to the foundation, though, and get a tax
But
deduction.
my point is, anybody, any organization can give money to Ridgeville Park District. It's up to us how it gets spent. So
Correct.
in our fundraising idea, any organization can. Now, It's up to the organization, right, that's giving money away if they have policies and procedures of what types of groups they give to. But there's a lot available out there for government agencies like ours. And I think we have a lot of potential that's kind of being missed by not letting people know we want their money to do things, including like our art building. Now, like the art building, for instance, that would be directly related to the foundation. So that could be all under a tax deductible foundation kind of a thing. But like for a skate spot, which is not part of the arts at all, if someone wanted to write a check for $100,000, say, here, Ridgeville, I support this skate spot, we can accept it legally, and we can spend it legally if our board agrees to spend it for that.
But what you run into then, not only do we not have consensus, you have opposition for that issue. You have opposition to do it, to agree to letting part of our land be used for it. So again, it's just not the consensus. You have at least 2 board members that are opposed to the idea.
Got it.
And that would work to prevent it. So
I didn't hear that part.
okay, well then I want to be sure
Yeah.
that part is articulated, because I will oppose it. I will oppose using any of our green space for a skate spot,
Okay.
whether you donate 100,000 or somebody else does. So I
And that
think when you
person-
go forward, just keep that in mind. So so it doesn't get missed in the.
So that the person you're asking for the money from
So it
needs to
sounds like
know
a clear
that.
threat. It's like,
It's not a
don't
threat,
do
it's
this,
just,
or
I just want to be
I'm gonna do
honest.
this,
No, I
I'm gonna
appreciate
make
that.
this and
I
that.
appreciate that.
So why spend, why go through
sorry.
the, extensive effort of doing that? Talk to the city and see what,
Well,
they're interested in doing.
And I sincerely mean, this is one of the values of having these kind of discussions, because I didn't know that you would actively resist a project
They
that
resist.
at least 2 other board members are interested in. But that is your right, and I get it, so I'm not knocking it, okay? And I am saying I appreciate knowing that. Now, in answer to the question, though, about why I would go ahead with it, is because I firmly believe a majority of people in our constituency would support it. I do think that if we had a public, whatever you want to call it, discussion or debate, or make it very open, I think we would find a pretty strong support for this kind of thing. Now, whether or not that meets, majority of our board, that's a different, I don't know. But that's why I would spend time on it, because I value the idea. I value the benefit to the community. I believe we can raise the money for it. And I believe if it were to happen, even though there's opposition, I think ultimately people would see how fun it is and the opposition would subside. That's my honest belief. But I don't want to do anything, like part of my reason for being here and doing this kind of collaboration is so that we have more transparency on why we're doing what we're doing. So I appreciate it, even though we disagree, and that's okay.
We'll set it down.
All right, I think we can move on. The next thing I have on the list is the executive director review process. I brought a copy of that. It should be in your packet.
Yeah, I do have it. It's just unbelievable.
Mine.
So this is confidential stuff here, what we're looking at, right? I want to be
Not
clear.
really, no. I mean, I
This is
think
just for
it's-
a director, it's not for a name.
I-
It's just for a director, it's not for a name. I mean, if we were to discuss it with his name, then it wouldn't be here.
Okay, we
Go
won't
ahead.
use his name when we're discussing.
Then you,
Well, I mean, what I'm
I thought I
looking
gave
at,
myself the picture.
what I have is in the
Share.
blue, like, look, is this what we're talking about?
Yes, that's it, yes.
Is this his actual evaluation?
This is what I'm proposing, yes.
But I mean, that's not, I mean, this is like a draft hypothetical.
This is not what he's done, this is
Okay.
what we're expecting.
That's what I'm
in the
asking.
next year.
I was just worried that we had his confidential last year's thing. This is like potential
This is going forward.
going
yes.
forward, okay.
And this is something that we discussed a couple of months ago, and we
Got it.
decided to push back to this meeting because we weren't wanting to discuss it there. So,
Rob's in the bathroom.
anyway, when we did
Let's
Brian's.
wait till Rob,
Okay. What happened to my other sheet? I know I had.
Is
like-
it under these? Oh, no, those are,
Oh, there it is. I found it.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I knew I had it there
Shoot.
somewhere. It bugs me when I can't find something I thought I had.
a lot of people out picking up garbage. Oh, there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not too much garbage here.
Is today the Earth Day?
Today is, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
nice that people are out there.
Yeah.
My daughter came home from preschool with this little tiny block with her name on it and pressure paint. I was like, what is this for, honey? She goes, collecting garbage.
Because she knows you don't have a lot of garbage in here or around your
Like her
house.
teachers, clear them all out.
That's nice,
Those are
though.
pretty fancy pastries.
That's
Oh,
nice,
from
because
the,
at
yeah.
least
It's on
they,
Howard Street.
you know, get the idea and they,
Right
she's
by the-
gonna put something in that bag,
By the
right?
gas station,
Okay.
our side of the street. You guys, I'm gonna put these grease things back in the fridge. Keep them safe. But they're available.
So I think I had described earlier how I came up with this. I had gone to the boot camp last year about this time in May. And they were, going through different things, and this is one of the things that they presented there as far as executive director reviews. And so it's just really a more formal way of going about it, where at the beginning of the year, we talk about our goals and expectations, and then at the end of the year, it's kind of like, okay, then how well did we do? How well did our executive director do? So I guess my intent is that we're more involved in the process all the way through. So from the, the beginning of the year, okay, we want to do the art studio, for instance, like for next year, and we want these programs to be there. I mean, so it's just getting it in the language of what we're hoping to accomplish this year. So when we did the review last year, at the end of it, Brian actually came up with a list of goals, and I came up with some goals, and we discussed those, and we're pretty much on the same page. And so this was an attempt to put those in a document that we all agree on for December 31st or whenever, January of next year, when we do his review, that this is what we're looking for. So if we want to just go through the different objectives, we can just go through, starting at the top here. Objective number 1, build relationships with schools and community organizations, provide an after-school program for youth at Kamen Fieldhouse, look for funding through grants or partnerships to ensure that this is a year-round program. Maintain excellent working conditions with the City of Evanston and various agencies and neighbor groups.
Well,
So do we all agree with that as a goal?
Where was this?
objective
It's right here
number
in
1.
Performance objectives. See
Right,
that?
right here. And it's got to be measurable, right?
Right.
That's part of your goal, that's part of the idea. SMART, specific, measurable, acceptable, realistic, and time-bound.
So something that would be specific and measurable is that, are we providing an after-school program? We are, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if we maintain that through December of this year, that would be measurable.
Yep. And look for funding through grants or partnerships to ensure. So really, I think the measurable part is we're just asking them to look. It doesn't mean we're saying you have to find it.
Right.
Or,
Correct.
Or
so-
they have to
Yeah.
agree to
Yeah.
give it.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
But it's just, we're
Right.
asking
Make an
him to
attempt.
encourage him to look, to find out what resources are out there maybe that could help us. Is that
Which
it?
is
stuff he does.
Right, right.
And he
So-
has been doing for years, yeah.
Right, so, and then maintain excellent working conditions with the city of Evanston and various agency and neighbor groups.
Very.
And, you know, I think what I would want to see at the end of this is just more like a paragraph, yes, this is how I did this.
Well, yeah. Here's the folks I talked to, or organizations, or grant options, those kind of things?
Right,
Okay.
right.
I don't know, could I just make an observation? I just think this is more complicated than it needs to be,
Yeah.
frankly. It puts more work on us, number one. I think, you know, we're gonna set goals, and we're gonna do that every time we have a conversation with them, basically, in terms of the compensation, right? I mean, he's gonna know what his goals are.
And why is this complicated?
Well,
Because
it's one document.
it's a form that, you know, I'm gonna rate, I'm gonna give them a 9 or a 10, or a 7 or an 8.
And we're all going to do that.
We're all gonna do that, but why can't we just say, hey, Brian, I think you should do better on this. Why don't you call them? Why don't you do that? So I'd rather have a dialogue than say, you got an 80 on your evaluation. Because that's what this leads to, in my opinion. Again, let's have a conversation. Here are your
But
goals.
this is a conversation,
To
really.
me, it's a form that I have to, number one, understand each one of these little points in here, but really, these are big points, you know?
Right.
These are important things. So
These are
I want them to
expectations.
stand out. I want his expectations to stand out. I don't want it as part of a form where I'm grading him on, okay, there's one sentence here. That's one thing. And then
Patrick,
there's
every executive director or parks city manager is graded and has an evaluation
Okay.
like this. I mean, this is not
But
unheard
this
of.
is an IBM, you know?
Okay.
This is-
We
This
talk
is
to
coming
Brian
from another
all the
park.
time.
This is
I
in
know, but
Park
what,
District.
do
That's
they
how
have
big.
staff to do this stuff? Do they
Doesn't
have
matter.
staff to, you know,
But
process it?
I'm not sure we're that far apart though, Patrick. If I hear you right, what I hear you saying is the conversation piece is important versus,
The conversation is important, yes.
and I do think we can do both, and here's why. In my opinion, if we were to use a form like this, okay, if we were, as a board, that doesn't mean that it is done in a vacuum with the board and then sort of give it to him, and then a year later, you know, we just go and check stuff. It really can be a conversation on what it looks like. I mean, he's part of this process too, on the goals. So that's a big conversation. And then with us helping him perhaps meet these goals, it's not just like, it's not just like a race where he has to go, you know, and then we just sit there and watch, but how do we help him be successful in these goals? There could be a dozen conversations during the year to help him with
That's
this.
exactly right.
Yeah.
There's demands on us.
Right, oh, yeah.
You know, he
Right.
can't do his job in a vacuum.
His success is our success is
Right.
his success.
So
Right.
it puts the onus on us.
Right.
But really, what the result of this, we're not gonna grade ourselves. We're gonna grade him.
Yeah.
So we're not grading what we did to provide him the tools to be successful. Well, but he's getting the results of this. So in some ways, we could set him up for failure because we don't support partnership with Evanston, or we don't support finding money for the art
doesn't
studio.
support that?
We don't. We don't. We're not grading ourselves. We're grading him.
Well, maybe
And
the
again-
process could have him grade us as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there could be
Well, then it
something
becomes
that's
an
like,
adversarial, you know.
I don't see
You
it as
didn't do
adversary
this.
at all.
Okay, well, I mean, he could tell us that
Yeah, I don't want,
in our meeting, he could say, well, you didn't do anything to raise taxes, or you didn't do anything to
Right.
support Natalie's being a full-time person, or other stuff that, you know, he might support that we're not supporting.
This opens the conversation in a way.
Yeah.
But we should have that conversation with the goals that we're
We
setting,
set up.
basically.
Right.
And what he's achieved, you know, the goals that we're setting in our strategy, in our budget, that's imparted to him to help achieve.
Can
Right.
you help me out, though? This is one way I use sometimes when I'm not quite understanding. It's just, help me, use your own words, help me understand how doing this would limit conversation.
Well, because it would be, number one, we'll have to agree on all the objectives.
Yeah.
You know, so there, you've got one objective there. That looks like multiple objectives to me. And again,
That's why we're discussing this.
okay.
So it needs to be better spelled out.
It needs to be better spelled, but
Okay.
I don't want to, I'm not gonna grade somebody. I just don't feel like that
But we
is-
do grade him at the end of the
But
year.
you're not
But we
putting a
do in some of
1,
our,
2,
but the results of our stuff at the end of the year are, here, we think you can do this. So there's gonna be some suggestions. But it's either we're gonna give them a raise, not give them a raise, or fire them. So those are the three outcomes, right?
Oh, I don't agree with you. I mean, I agree with you, but I think there's more.
Well, there's more to it, and that's the part that is important, basically.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's the important part of, so articulating and then helping, and then, so then because of our involvement in this, it's a two-way street. Why are we grading him? That's what I object to. We're gonna give him a numerical number. Brian, out of 100, you got 50. What
But
does
we-
that achieve?
But we
Nothing.
do that now.
We do that now.
We do that with the other employees.
Well,
They get,
we don't do that at all.
no, I mean, Brian
He's
brings that to
responsible
us.
for that.
Right,
He's
Oh, for the
res-
other employees.
For the other employees, he's responsible.
right, that's what I was speaking to, that there was
And we're
a,
responsible for him,
Yes,
right.
right.
So we're the
responsible.
ones that set what our expectations are for him, like he sets for the other employees.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right.
But in a conversational, relational setting. It's not like we do this like separate from him. I mean, he's got to agree like this is reasonable, whatever we come up with.
But we did do that at the end of his last review. He had his goals. I brought up goals. He agreed.
And I agree too. I mean, that's fine. So
Yeah.
what's wrong with that
So
process?
what's wrong with then saying, okay, this throughout the year we want to keep our eyes on these things?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
But don't we do that?
Yeah, we do that. and we
Well-
should
I mean,
do.
why do we need to?
Because I think it sets a tone that these are things that we find important. That we're having I mean, we're the ones setting policy.
Yeah.
We're the ones responsible for the budget, for instance.
It's kind of
We're
like a best
responsible.
practice 21st century parks and rec standard. And I think if any of us wanted to, we can talk to other park districts. This is pretty common.
And I'm not saying it's not, and I'm not saying that it is, but I'm not saying it's not necessary for us because of our ongoing immersed involvement with our director. You know, it's not like a city council and a city manager
Right.
and staff.
But I don't know
and
that we have the daily conversations. I mean, I think we come together at the meetings. I'm not sure that,
I talk to Brian all the time, not just at the meetings, about what's going on, or if I see something in the park, or this or that.
but I'd say we're trying to gain some consensus here about what our goals are, how we want to move forward. This is really policy driven.
So let's get our goals together. Let's make sure that we have that understanding because that's what we should be doing. And then we should transmit that information to him. And then
So-
we should say, okay,
without
did you achieve this at the end of the
grading.
year? What didn't you do? What did? And I'm saying that should be a dialogue. That should be a conversation.
And
And it shouldn't be a numerical number.
But you know, also it's comments here. It's not necessarily a number. I don't really even see, you know, we're just.
Well, that's
we're-
what it is at the top. I mean, that's the first thing I see.
But we do that in our evaluation. He grades himself and then I mean, what I think is I feel like we're just reacting many times to what Brian sets forth as whatever it is he thinks he should be doing. So this is an attempt to have our policy and our direction translated into how we think that should play out. Does that make sense?
And whether it's numbers or, I mean, whatever we use now, percentages or something, but there's got to be some way to measure it, right?
And so what are we going to do after we measure it?
Oh, it's just, it's, all it is a point from year to year to see how we've made
How-
progress.
how
It
can
helps
we
him to know
improve?
too.
How can we
So
improve
as you
what
can
we're
see
doing
person's
here?
growing,
Okay, well,
that's all.
okay, I don't think I'm gonna argue about it anymore. I just don't think that, I think we should just define what our goals are and be sure he buys into those, basically. So that's gonna be a consultative process.
Yeah.
And the outcome is gonna be dependent on both of us and him and his staff, and how we've supported him. So, again, it's a two-way street, and I want to keep it a two-way street. I don't want to make it a one-way street where we're just grading him. So that's my point. How we get to there, I think if we just define our objectives in a more detailed manner.
So Pat, what have you done in the past that's really worked? Because you've been here a long time, and how have you?
I think it's the same way that Ann has done it the last year as she's been the president.
So you just
Well-
make 4 points and that's it, and you say, hey, man.
Well, here's
just-
what our objectives are. I would write we'd have the executive session meeting and having the conversation with him. And from that process, it would be, okay, here are the 4 items that we probably need to spend more time on. We probably don't, I never reiterated, okay, we're glad you accomplished this or that or whatever. It was more ongoing. Here are the things that we think needed some work. But I did it in a more conversational basis, and I put it in a letter after the review. We agreed to give you an increase of 2%. Thanks for your efforts, blah, blah, blah. Here's the points that are important for us as a board to achieve next year. And then I would kind of, we'd do that on an ongoing basis.
Okay, thanks for
So-
explaining that to me. I didn't know, that's
Yeah.
why I asked.
Yeah,
Now, it sounds like our new president and leadership is asking that we look at this way of doing this evaluation. And I do support that. Would you support this if this is what the board wants to do?
No, I mean, I'm not supporting this document. I'll support the concept of us developing objectives, us giving him those objectives and participating.
Right. And if the board agrees this is what we're gonna do, would you fight it or object to it?
No, I'm not gonna fight it.
You'll go
I'm
with
just not
it.
gonna spend a lot of time.
Okay,
Right.
I'm just trying to
deciding-
clarify.
I'm not gonna spend a lot of time trying to figure out what his grade is.
Okay.
I'm gonna, in my own mind, say, here's the areas I think that we should have focused on, or should focus on in the
Right.
future. So,
And Debbie, how about you?
Well,
On
I
this.
really feel that way. I hate these things. I
Okay.
think that I don't agree with doing it this way. I also agree with the ongoing conversation, goals, I don't think you have to go back to a lot of, well, great, you made a 5 this year, or you made a 3. You're asking if the board agrees to do it. I'll vote no if there's a vote, and if you do it, you do it.
And a piece of this too, and we're small enough, and I think these kind of conversations are helpful. That's why I support this idea of us meeting today. Would there be side conversations then? I mean, one thing we've got is our official capacity to oversee the director. And if the board agrees this is what we're gonna do, will there be any side conversations of a different process going on with him? I just want to make clear that if we agree this is how it's going to work, will we let it work?
Well, I don't think that's a valid thing. I mean, we're gonna evaluate him. You guys will fill this out with a lot of work and concentration. I won't.
No, I haven't filled
So
anything
I'm
out.
saying, if you agree to do it,
Oh,
but what kind of side conversations? We're not gonna go to Brian and say, they're gonna give you a 3, make sure really?
that's what I'm asking. That's good clarification, because I do think this would be if we do this, one of the pieces of our evaluation is our healthy communication with the director on those side conversations. And if this is what we agree as a board on how to evaluate the director, that's how we evaluate the director, right? We can still have our conversation
Yeah.
supporting them in between, but I don't want, in other words, I'm just hoping we don't end up with like 2 board evaluations, you know what I mean?
That would-
That's not
doesn't
gonna
make
happen.
sense.
Okay.
I don't even know, yeah.
You know, I think you guys have put a very negative spin on this, and, you know, like, I should have brought the one that was filled out by the other park district, and I may have shown that to you before. But it was actually a way that this park director could shine. I mean, he had done some things that he was very proud of, was able to really elaborate on in a document like this. And, you know, it wasn't a bad thing. You know, it doesn't have to be negative. It can be like, oh, we decided to do this and we got it done. You know, so I guess I feel like there's this like really negative reaction to something that doesn't necessarily have to be negative.
And even if a director, let's say, on one point, you know, this one objective 2 talks about increase class revenue by 25%, just hypothetically saying, let's say only 10% increase happens, right? But in the evaluation dialogue, you know, the conversations, we all learn how to better evaluate the next year's and realize, oh, we were too high last year. You know, we were unrealistic in our push. So next year, let's make it 10%, all right? To me, that's a healthy dialogue that helps the director. It doesn't mean that, oh, look at you, you didn't make 25%. It's really all of us.
And to that fact, Natalie actually will meet that goal. And you know
Yeah.
what? I think she's probably pretty proud of it.
Yeah.
And we give her kudos in board meetings, and we tell her all the time how good she's doing. I just don't, you know what, I'm not gonna discuss it anymore. There just seems to be a difference. We'll just
Yeah, there's a
agree to
difference of
disagree.
opinion,
This
but
is gonna, you
I
know.
would like to have a document.
Well, I
personally.
do think it's part of our agenda that we need to go through at least and understand, agree on, you know.
I think the important thing is, I think you're starting to say, and sorry to interrupt, is you need to understand the objectives.
Yes.
That has to be the focus of this, in my opinion. Understanding the objective and agreeing on the objective.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
So we might as well go through it because I
Yeah.
think the majority of us want to do it.
okay. Unfortunately, I have to leave.
And I do too.
Do you have 10 minutes or so, or?
No, I don't. I mean, I have to leave in 2 minutes, so
Oh.
I have to be somewhere at noon, and I've got to do
I can
something
leave
before I
it.
get
But we'll
there.
have the
I'm going to the
minutes.
same place, but I don't
So
know who goes.
you can discuss it, and I think my opinion known what it is, and said I would cooperate when it's done. But the onus is on us to get those objectives together.
Right.
And I don't want to
Yeah.
just speed through it in 2 minutes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
develop them, and then we'll
We'll
talk
take our
about it
first
some more.
draft through it, you know, today's meeting, and it'll be part of our minutes. And then maybe our next board meeting, we could talk about the objectives.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and when you say increase revenue, I'd like to be more specific with that, if that's what your goal is.
Okay.
Okay.
We had this conversation before, that I'm not interested in increasing
Right.
cost of the program. You know what I'm saying?
We're talking revenue.
We're talking revenue.
Yes,
I don't
it's
feel
class
like we should,
revenues.
would raise our fees 25%. So in
Oh,
other words,
yeah.
I want to get more specific. Do we want to, are we still
By
going to
offering more,
Okay.
by specifics, not, that's
By
too broad of are we trying to make a profit? Are we
I think
trying to?
by offering more opportunities.
But more specific will help. I
More
see what you're
specific
saying.
will help.
What about this,
Just
more
increasing
specific here?
revenues isn't important. We already subsidize our programs. I mean, we subsidize our programs by an extensive amount, but that's our decision. you
Just
know?
in 60 seconds, so help us out, because we can still discuss this, but I hear you. Should we be more specific here too, probably?
Yeah, increase partnerships. So with who? I mean, are
Okay.
you talking fundraising?
All
Are you
right.
talking,
Okay.
Oakton School? Are you talking,
Where's the next one?
The rec.
Maintain a balanced budget. That's easy, right? That's pretty straightforward. Identify.
well, that we have
That's-
to identify.
We have to anyway, right? So that sounds like, okay. So we'll
But
just be
there's
more
probably
specific.
a few more. I mean, the office environment, the quality of the working environment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an issue that needs to be discussed.
I'm
Maybe
writing
you
that
could-
down.
Maybe while you're thinking about that, maybe over the weekend, if you wouldn't mind thinking of some wording for that one.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Well, that's important.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
responsible for that environment, and we
Yeah.
have to be supportive of
I
helping
hear
him
you.
create
Yeah.
that environment. Obviously, we're getting to other issues in terms of job descriptions and, what people are doing in the office, and we know what we want to do with Natalie, but we haven't really discussed some of the other issues that need to be discussed.
Which would be executive session, right?
Would be in
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
format that,
Yeah.
but again, we all have to be open to that, and I just think it can't be no, you know what I mean? It's gotta be it's gotta be an open discussion,
Sure,
that,
sure.
that something long-term probably needs to be done, but,
But I did write down your idea of the office environment,
Okay.
all that, because that's got to be an
Okay.
objective
yeah, that's
Yeah.
important.
Okay.
and measurable.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you,
I'm sorry
Pat.
to leave early, but I just, yeah.
You have to.
So family's family.
All righty.
I'll see you
Okay,
there.
bye-bye.
Whew, okay. Objective 2? Or do you want to stay on 1 yet?
I just want to tell you why Pat left early, because he never, he just keeps his private stuff. He doesn't, it's a memorial for his brother who died.
His brother?
Yeah, Sean, who died, he was a good friend of ours too, last year. Do
Aw.
you remember? Maybe not. He died of, he had cancer, and
Oh.
his youngest,
Oh, that's horrible.
younger brother, he has 2 brothers younger, and so his wife called literally 2 weeks ago and said, I'm having a memorial because all the kids are going to be here. It's
Oh,
it's a
Saturday,
short-term
and such-
plan.
He would have
Ah.
never in a million years planned it today, and I was
Yeah.
sitting there and he said, I don't know how to even tell him, and that's why he asked for it to be earlier, and I'm going, but I don't have to be there obviously when all the
Yeah.
kids walk in, but I have about 15 more minutes, but I just want you to know so you don't think he's
Oh.
just
yeah.
going to a picnic
I
or
thought it was kind of
something.
weird that he was
Yeah,
wearing
dressed- all
a
dressed
coat
up.
to
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked pretty formal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why, so, I mean.
Oh, but
I
you
would-
knew him too?
I would, yeah, very well. I wouldn't mention it to Pat because he never, but that's
Right.
why he didn't just decide to go out to dinner with his family. It's
Yeah,
Oh, bless
it's a
him.
big deal
Yeah.
in his life.
sure.
All right. Objective 1. I
Well, and
love it.
also, the order of these doesn't have to be, I don't know that they are in any order of importance.
Yeah.
This is just
They're
stuff
all
that,
important.
yeah, so I don't think it should be thought that this top one is the most important one.
I like objective 1 for the record. And I think it's measurable. Is that how you want to go through this, is objective by objective?
Yeah, I think the measurable part is important to look at, because I think, I don't think maintain excellent working conditions with the city of Evanston and various agencies and neighbor groups. I don't know if that's very measurable, frankly.
Oh, I'm sorry, sure.
Right.
Here, I didn't even,
One way to measure, if
If
you
there's any
wanted
changes,
to,
I
is,
can write it down.
you got
I mean,
it.
one way I
Write it right
measure-
on there, you can have it.
is just having a relational database, I guess. There's different departments maybe in the city that he just connects with once in a while. I don't know. It's not just parks and recreation, right? Streets and sanitation, the forestry department. But I want to give him credit for all those, because if you start listing those, oh yeah, I've had several conversations with forest and several with sewage or whatever. And there's a lot of people he connects with through the city. I'd love to give him credit for. It's only, maybe it's just a list of the departments and a checkoff thing, he
Right.
checks
Well,
it
and,
with them.
and then this doesn't look like there's much room for text, but if you actually go into the document, you can make a long paragraph.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
so,
I just wanted to mention something on just objective 1, and I don't know if we can include it, or maybe I'm missing it somewhere else, but just all the different grants with IAPD that you can actually, through the parks. I don't know if I see a lot of, of course we get our IAPD booklets and on all that, but there's so many offerings and different grants and kind of money that can be at least applied for in some kind of way, and I don't know how all that works, but I'd love to see us exhaust a little bit more of that and go, at least we tried. And just to see a few more of those on the docket for the year going, hey, you know what, we've reached out, and there's all these different kind of,
Yep.
monies that you can get for renovations or,
For example, I agree,
I
Rob.
feel like that OSLAD was one of them that we brought up.
Yeah, like, for example, this one Chicago Voyagers board I'm on, for $20 an hour, we're able to get some really great grant writers, just part-time. It's not like a full-time employee. It can even be like a consultant or something. But just thinking budget-wise, if we were to invest X, could we get X plus out of it, that pays for
Yeah.
itself? So, there are professional grant writers who are great development people that are used to what we're doing. If we
Yeah,
put it, I mean, just to think about it.
there is, like recently I wrote a grant for Evanston Community Foundation. I was able to actually work with these grant writers at Evanston Public Library, and they had so many suggestions and so many ins, like they've done this before, so they know you have to do it this way, and it's like stuff. I don't even know if you could take a class and learn that. It's really just experience. But that is one conversation I did have with Natalie, and I think we're thinking about her going to full time. She is not that well versed or hasn't had that much experience with grants, and so I think it would be worth maybe getting her some training in that area, because I do think it's a whole nother ball of wax.
If she goes to full-time.
Right.
Because she is chocked to the top with responsibilities for the hours she puts in now.
Right, so I think, I
Yeah.
think, that would be, I would think that it would be money well spent, if we're gonna be putting in in a more responsible role
Yeah.
to, get her some training on that.
Right. But just so you know, there are folks out there you can even hire as a consultant that can, if we needed a grant for the art house, let's say, I'm sure for $20 an hour, we could find someone to write a grant that puts in 10 or 20 hours. The grant's written, and it's money well spent if we get the grant, right?
Right.
Those ideas are ways to expand our budget.
When Carrie was the program director, she and, who was it before her? It was,
Mike?
no, there was somebody else after Mike before Carrie. We've lost 3. Christine, or I don't remember, something like that. Chrissy, something like that. I can't think. Carrie did have experience in writing grants, and grants were written. It's not like we just never looked into stuff. I don't want that to be taken as a given.
Allison
that-
wrote grants, Mike wrote
Right,
grants.
and Mike, and I talked to Mike not long ago after the last, function that the foundation had, and it is like pulling teeth. I just want you to know, getting money.
Yeah.
They barely get enough money to do what they do. So I just, I think it's great that we think of these things and we want to get, Brian more involved, and we want to give whoever the full-time person is, if it's Natalie, classes, but especially in these times, let's be realistic about what money's out there. And yes, you got money for things that, it also, because we're a district, we're not the city of Evanston, we are a confined district. So grants are, but I don't want you to think that in all the years of Ridgeville, we didn't go after grants. It was
No,
like
I know, Allison-
pretty wild and
Allison-
crazy.
It's fair.
Allison wrote quite a few.
Yeah.
And Ann Rainey has helped to get us many CBDG
Right,
stuff. So
Right.
we, we can always do more,
right.
but I just want to be fair with the people that have worked here all those years that
Right.
we've always
Right.
tried to get tons of money.
Right, and I think part of our discussion, at least for me, is not that little detail, although I agree with you 100%, that the past folks have written grants. As I'm looking at the bigger picture of, our limited $600,000 to $700,000 budget that we work with. It could be $7 million, it could be $1 million, it could be $3 million. We have over 700 not-for-profits here in Evanston that are thriving.
That are
People-
the whole city.
that the people are donating to. And my experience in working with different non-for-profits is that there are ways to bring in partners to grow our budget. That's all I'm saying. And with the idea of, utilizing some of the folks out there that are just sitting around wanting to write grants, is that we could hire them perhaps, or to train.
I'd rather see Natalie train.
Or to train Natalie. There are people that could do that.
Because
but
then
you have
it's
to
not
pay
just a
them,
one-time thing, she could do
Yeah,
it
then it's
year after-
ongoing.
It's ongoing.
Right, right. I'm just thinking that this objective one, maybe we should split out and have this look for funding through grants or partnerships to ensure that,
I agree.
not that this is a year that we,
2 objectives, yep.
that we kind of expand on that and say, in partnerships to expand opportunities for, our constituents.
Programs,
And for equipment.
Oh, yeah, it could be any kind of fundraising, absolutely. It could be for any aspect of our budget. And that's what's so cool about hiring some of the professional grant writers, is they know what organizations want to fund different aspects. So there are organizations that would love to actually give us money for specific hardware or equipment, and then there's other folks that would love to give money for programs. So-
Right.
I would like to know, I don't want a special phone call made to him, he's expensive, the lawyer. But I would like to know if there are any limitations on that. Like Rob was saying, I was going to ask the same question. Since we're non-for-profit and we don't encompass all of Evanston, and what are the limits that we would have on taking money or asking for money, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there
It'd be
may
worth-
be
it'd be
none,
worth-
but
It'd be
I
worth
just-
questioning, sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a good
Hopefully
question.
there's none,
But
but.
I would think it would have to come through possibly through the foundation. And I don't think there's a limit on foundation money.
I think that's true, but Park District, I just don't know, but I'd like
Any
to.
direct donations, kind of?
Yeah, what is the limit on direct donations to the Park District? Are there any?
Are there any? Because, I'd hate to do all the work and then, no,
Right.
you can't.
Great idea.
That would be a good problem to have.
Yep.
Yeah, we'd always find a way. And I do know that if people earmark money, like when estates give money, but
Yeah,
they want it
restricted money.
earmarked,
Yeah,
and
it's
you're
restricted.
restricted to using it on, because I
Yeah, and
remember
it's
that.
something like that, like if we got something donated to our foundation.
Enhance the programs.
Then the donating organization should earmark it or should restrict it for use by Ridgeville Park District.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
can even within the Park District restrict it. I only want it used at Cayman Park, or I only want it used at Elks Park, and it's our choice to accept it or not, but that definitely, I know from working at other agencies that you have to respect that when people do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Objective 2,
Oh, hold on, Dan. So how did you want one to be split up?
So I think we should, do you want to see these? I mean, is it hard for you to just, oh, you've got it.
I
Okay.
copied it so
It's just
far.
I think
how
we
it
should
is.
make objective 2 the look for funding.
Okay, just with the same wording, so the
Except,
objective one is
um,
build relationships with schools, provide an after-school program as objective 1.
Yeah.
And then number 2,
Look for funding through grants or partnerships to expand opportunities or for,
that's new wording then, to expand opportunities.
for programs and equipment? Is that a good word?
Cool,
Or-
yeah,
Equipment,
Okay,
okay.
so now we have 6 objectives instead of 5.
yeah,
And-
so,
All right.
so that'll be objective 2, and then we're moving on to objective 3 now for the other.
Okay. And then ensure that this is a year-round program, goes with the after-school program.
Yeah,
And,
that would be part of
Portion.
objective 1.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, our minutes don't necessarily have to be exactly what the form's going to look like, right? The minutes can say, we discussed it, here's what we agreed on, but what we decide on a form can,
Yeah, but it's helpful.
Just
It
to
is.
document
Just so you know, it
and then
doesn't have to be
Pat can
exact,
read it
yeah.
and-
Yeah.
Okay. And then maintain excellent working conditions with the city of Evanston and various agencies and neighborhood groups.
So that should be,
As a third one, or just keep that
what do you guys think?
with the second? It's kind of a different idea.
Yeah, let's do it as the third one.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's different from maintaining, from doing grants and,
Right, okay, so that's 3.
All right.
So objective 4 would be the increased class revenues by 25% by
An
June.
exact amount, I think Pat kind of referred to putting a dollar amount on that, or?
Okay,
So I'm just mentioning that
to
because
not put a dollar amount?
2 actually,
Two, and
that's what I thought he was referring to,
I
maybe I
think
was mistaken.
what he was referring to, I think, is that it's great to want to increase class revenue, but we don't want to spread ourselves so, we don't want to put so many classes out there that lots of them are going dead, because that doesn't look good either. And we don't necessarily want to make a profit. I mean, we don't want to make a profit. That's not what we're about. We're not supposed to make a profit. So I think we have to be
well, I
really
think that's a
careful with
misnomer,
that.
actually,
Okay
as
to
far
make
as the
money.
profit. I think nonprofits actually make a profit, but then they funnel the funds back into.
Well, this
other
has been
things.
our philosophy, I guess, at Ridgeville, so you can take it however, wherever you want to take it, or word it however you want to word it. But we want as many people as possible to be able to take advantage of the classes.
That's right,
And
that's right,
they're,
that's right.
they've been going up a little bit, I mean, obviously from when my kids were in it, which is a long time ago, but we don't want to get to a point where we have so many kids asking for, scholarships, that we can't do it. We'd rather keep it at a point where we can have the most kids in, not, so I think that's one that really has to be looked at. If you
What-
keep upping if you keep upping the cost of the class to make a profit, then.
I don't think this is cost related at all. It was really more offering more classes.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
what
was
I
the
heard
goal.
Patrick ask is that if we have this, just to be a little more specific, to make sure that we're not talking about just raising class pricing,
Pricing.
but offering more classes to bring more revenues in. But you're right, it has to be an efficient way so that we're not just
Because
wasting
you can
time.
offer 100 classes.
Right, but only
and then
50
say,
are-
Only 3 are going,
Yeah.
well, that doesn't look good.
No. Right. So-
And we don't really have the money in the advertising,
But I do like the way.
advertising budget.
I like the
to-
way it's stated, increase class revenue by 25%. So that's a specific goal, but then we could clarify, this means
By offering more classes.
I'm offering more classes.
Which isn't really Brian's job.
Well, he's overseeing that though.
I mean, that's how you
Yeah.
get an organization to work. That person in charge, that's his job, that he wants to make sure that's done, and he delegates these things.
Right.
But it's also our job as board members to help grow the programs, to come up with new ones, like.
The thing is
Patrick's.
also this is related to the budget, because last year, kind of the whole way that this started was, we had actually dropped off about 30% in class revenues. And so I was concerned about that. And then also, going forward, it was like, okay, how are we gonna get to that $100,000 number? That we say is the revenue, okay? So if we're gonna say it's the revenue and we're gonna give people salaries based on this revenue,
Yeah.
then we better darn well have that
And
revenue.
offer more classes. If you don't have people taking the classes, you don't have to pay the salary of the person teaching the class, if nobody signs up. So it all works hand in hand with the,
Right, but when we present a budget and we agree on a budget, that should be our
work
goal.
toward, right.
Yes.
And not every employee fits what you just described, Debbie. The classes that we offer, it does. Those teachers are directly proportionally paid by the members in the class, right? It pays for
We
itself.
subsidize it,
Well, then
and we always have, and that's,
it further supports this idea that we need to make sure the director understands that we've got to bring up revenues to cover that subsidized cost. Then there's all the other employees, those are seasonal. So we hire all of them. It doesn't matter how many people. So our parks guys, it doesn't matter if there's one person or 100 people in the park, we still pay them. It's not,
But if you offer more classes and to bring up the revenue, then you've got people more spread out. And so say you only have 5 people in this class and that doesn't pay for the teacher. So we subsidize it. Are we gonna trash that class?
Well, and a lot of the things that have come up in this has been that, you know, we have this class card and some people go to this class and that's not necessarily the revenue for that class. And so it's kind of this balancing
Because they
act.
paid $100
Right.
for the card. for
Right,
X amount of
so-
time, Right.
You know, and Natalie talks about the struggles with that. And
Mhm.
I mean, I think, you know, what I was getting at was, you know, we're paying people, you know, directors, you know,
Mhm.
everybody. And if we don't, and we just need to be able to be physically responsible for that,
Right,
that projection. So
right.
that's why, where
Yeah.
the goal comes
Okay.
for me.
And already, I do believe that it's right, it's a fact that he's met this goal. We're cool at 25% for this year. It
Yeah,
happened.
and you know, and I think, again, I think Natalie's very proud of that, and she'll get her $500 bonus, and
Yeah.
it's gonna
And
be
she
really
should.
good.
Yeah.
Right, so I mean, I
Yeah.
think, you know, I think people like to have goals on some level. So,
I have to go, because I don't want to walk
Okay.
in the middle of it.
all
I'm
right,
sorry.
that's all right, thank you.
Sorry for the loss.
Yeah, tell
He
Pat
has-
we're sorry about
He
that.
has
Right.
6 kids.
How old was he?
I believe he was 48, but
When
he'd
did he
been sick
die?
for a while. Last year, Pat never tells anybody anything.
Wow.
This
Yeah.
is a year.
Wow.
This is a year. And all
Because his
our
mom
kids.
died too, right?
Yeah, that was a while ago, but now one of his brothers, and this will stay here,
Yeah.
one of his brothers has 4th stage cancer, another one.
Get out of here.
So he's dealing with a lot.
Currently.
Yeah.
Because he's
Yeah.
like the oldest.
How many
in the
kids were in the family?
4 boys, and he's the oldest.
My stepmother lost her daughter this week.
Oh,
What's that?
My stepmother lost her daughter this
that's
week.
so hard.
Oh.
It's
62.
unnatural to lose a child,
Yes, it
isn't it?
She's my stepsister.
Oh, your stepsister, wow.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's sad. Yeah.
A loss is a loss.
It's tough. And my cousin who was 62, we lost him a couple of years ago.
And that's
Cancer.
young,
It is young.
getting younger every year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie.
Bye, Debbie.
Can we just take a minute, since there's just 4 of us, 3 board members, to take a look at our current grouping and see how we're doing on schedule and all? I just want to try to set my pace. We're still good, right, for the rest of the agenda and try to
I
go
think
through it?
so. Yeah. I think it'd be good to get through this document.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I wouldn't mind having some discussions about the budget,
Mhm.
some of my concerns.
Yeah.
Um,
And then executive sessions on our
Yeah.
agenda too, and I really would like to do that.
Yeah, and then at that point you can leave.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe we
And
should
then
just.
you would just lock up and
Yeah,
everything? Okay.
yeah, I've got a key,
Okay.
yeah.
Alrighty. Oh, yes. Oi, oi.
I actually think I wrote really well.
But it's telling, isn't it? It's good enough. Good enough. It's a break.
Record over everything?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Didn't think about that. Oh, well, okay, so objective 3, just by offering more classes.
Is number 2 staying the same?
I'm sorry,
We changed the numbers.
4 is by offering
4
more
is the-
classes. Increase class revenues
Yeah.
by 25 by June 30th by offering more classes.
By
That's 4, right?
That's 4, okay,
Okay.
so now we're on 5.
Alright.
So 3 is now 5.
Apple.
3 is the new 5.
Now, increased partnerships in the community. I 100% agree, but I'm just trying to figure out how we measure it. And maybe how we could do that is to talk about increasing community partnerships by so much. I don't know what we have now. Let's say we have 2. increase it by 1 next year or by 2. How do you measure it?
Partnerships within the district, right? Or are
Within
we
the
talking
community.
about- or
Within the
within the
community.
community, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that could be with
widens
churches,
the
it could
net.
be with schools, it could be with other park districts, right? It could be,
The idea is to kind of get something that would be revenue producing.
Okay.
so
So
maybe,
that's what I have in the subtext there. So, I mean, I don't know if that's all too much text.
I like the idea of increasing partnerships in the community, whether or not money comes in or not. But I do think by increasing partnerships, more funding will come.
Right.
So to me, it's more of a relational thing from organization to organization. And if we could increase those organizational relationships
For
in the
example,
community.
doing more with Presence Health
Yeah.
on our health initiative.
Yeah.
Right.
That could,
Yeah.
you know, let's say at the end of that or at some part of that could be an outgrowth of, man, helping renovate a tot lot or, I don't know,
Yeah.
something like that. I mean,
Right.
when I see Presence there, I go, hey, they got a new CEO, we got a
Yeah.
fresh opportunity. How are we reaching out with them and maybe
Yeah.
partnering and doing something? I see that as immediate. I'm like,
Yeah.
boy, this is a no-brainer. Here's a new guy in. What do we? And I know we've got things like Bike to Ridge that they've been a part of, and they've brought some whatevers. But maybe there's a larger initiative that he could explore.
So how should we word this? I guess that's.
I would say increase organizational partnerships within the wider community that includes Chicago, Cook County. It could be as broad as you want.
Within the wider community?
Within the wider community. So it's not just Ridgeville.
So right,
It's-
not our confines, our 28,000.
Yeah.
All right.
It's like, we want to find new partners
Which
that'll
is-
help us, like YOU.
It's pretty. I just want to point out that number. 28,000 is pretty significant because actually Lincolnwood is only 12,000 people and they've got a skate spot. I just want to say that. I keep coming back to that. I just
Relatively.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. That's right.
So
Increase-
by 1 or
Um,
like I like your measurement.
Yeah, and one thing that might be helpful when we have the conversation with Brian about this is let's find out how many partnerships we currently have. It'd be nice to start there as our base.
Uh-huh.
Call that the baseline.
Uh-huh.
And let's say increase organizational partnerships in the community from our current baseline of whatever it is to 4 more. Or whatever number we want to say. But I always like to be pushing
A
us
little
to
more.
gradually, and if he does 8 new partnerships, that's great too, that's
From our
overachieving.
current,
But I don't want to scare him away and say 100, you know.
maybe say 2, you know.
Sure.
So should we have this subtext underneath that?
I would say instead of approach, I would say develop relationships with different organizations, such as Presence Health or YOU
yeah, as an example.
or
Right.
school districts, whatever, just examples.
Right. Examples.
Yeah. And I would like to have a current baseline of how many partnerships we currently have, and I bet it's pretty cool, and that could be part of our website advertising. People
Well,
like
we
that.
have like Oakton School now.
Yeah, yeah.
And the city.
Yep.
Shoot. All right.
Shoot, right. Okay, so you're putting this down, right?
I have increased organizational partnerships within the wider community from our current
Baseline of,
baseline
and we don't know what it is.
of blank to
Yeah.
blank.
And increase by 2,
Yeah.
or you could say at least
Okay.
2 or something like
Yeah.
that.
And then develop relationships with institutions like Presence Health,
Okay.
and then kept the rest the same.
YOU.
Presence
Mhm.
Health, YOU.
School districts,
Okay.
faith-based groups, whatever, I mean, you can start listing them all.
Okay, so that's.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're good on that. 5, I think can probably stay the same, maintain a balanced budget.
6, you mean?
Is that
Yep,
6
number
now?
6 now. I know.
Or, this one was 5, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
That's why we have
Isn't
our
that,
taker.
isn't that implied though? I mean, maintain a balanced budget, I mean,
Yeah, but it gives him credit in this evaluation if he does it.
Right,
I mean, it is some science in
Yeah.
the puzzle.
right. Okay, so 7, identify and develop with the board a list of capital improvements. Continue to work on improving communication with staff and board members. These probably should be separated out.
I agree.
So 7 should be identify and develop with the board a list of capital improvements.
yes, agreed.
And then work on strategies to implement, or, I don't know.
Communication.
I think really implement projects, or, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, you want to say, okay, did we do that?
Yeah.
So maybe identify, develop, and implement.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now that third line, assess the age and condition of each piece of play equipment, that fits with,
Okay, yeah, so
you know,
maybe that should be the
the description or something.
description on that one. You see
Yeah.
that, Julie?
What? No.
So the third line in that
Assess
goal-
age and condition?
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
that should be the subtext of that.
Of the identify, develop, and implement?
Yeah.
And implement a turf maintenance program. Does that mean grass or?
And yes, so that should be,
For the fields?
yeah, that, I mean, that's something that he had in his goals.
Okay. I just don't know what turf means.
It means grass.
You just,
Oh.
yeah, call
Okay.
it an all turf.
And I think that should be separate from,
Yeah.
from that. I mean, I think maybe that we should have a whole section on
Beautification of the
facilities
park, or?
maintenance. Maintenance, really,
Yeah, it is. Well, of the turf, you mean?
or just maintenance of everything.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that is a big part of his job.
Yeah. Maintain all facilities and
Yeah, it's
Turf
facilities management, and then it's programming,
and
right?
plants, I don't know. Would you start listing everything up?
Facilities and grounds and.
Yeah, it's facility and grounds, that's it.
So what's
So-
the wordage on that? So this is another
So
objective.
implement a facilities and ground maintenance program.
That sounds
Sure.
good. Yeah.
Thanks, Julie.
Sure.
So that would be 8 then?
I think that's 9. Where 7 was identify, develop, and implement with the board a list of capital improvements.
And then 8,
8, continue to work on improving communications with staff and board members.
and should that be a little more, like, I think
Specific.
Yeah.
that maybe should be a little worded a little bit better.
Yeah, and that's sort of what Patrick was also mentioning on his way out. He was saying, you know, he'd like to see some kind of objective about quality of work environment, which is part of communication and,
Maybe the staff and the board members should be separate. Like, we should have a staff one and a board member one.
Mhm. Yeah, because we're not, yeah.
okay.
So the first one maybe
I would
is
agree.
staff, so that's 8.
Um,
Continue to work on improving communications with staff, or,
I'm trying to figure this out, like, first of all, it's hard to measure, right? So if we're gonna do specific goals that are measurable, we gotta figure out a way to measure this, so I wanna make sure we can measure it. But the idea is to have,
I think also
Good relationships
developing
with-
staff, develop staff.
Hmm.
Because I think that's something that, like we were talking about
Mhm.
Natalie getting training or whatever.
hmm,
Ensure that staff is developed.
what's the wording? I know what you're trying to say.
Professional development.
Provide professional development avenues for all staff?
Yeah, but I don't think that's the whole thing, because I think we're just talking about dealing with staff,
The relationship part too.
relationship part.
All right, so
Coordination.
to develop positive
Working
staff,
environment.
working environment for all staff, including access to professional development.
That sounds good. So can you say that again, or did you get that?
I'm not sure I could say it again.
Develop a positive working environment for all staff, including access to professional development.
Yeah. Woohoo, thanks,
Mhm.
Julie.
Sure.
And that might be. Okay. As well as professional?
Including access to professional development.
Including access. And is there any way you can send me just the stuff from this form, so I can have that ready for the next board meeting?
Yeah, I can just email you the whole thing.
Okay,
Amended.
thanks.
It's just like bullets.
Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds great. Okay, so then, so we did the age of the equipment.
Are we doing a whole separate item for board members? Or keeping that in the same goal?
I think it should be a separate item.
Okay.
Don't you, wouldn't you agree?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Relationships with board members, develop or
Yes.
maintain open communication and
With all board members.
with all, maintain open communication with all board members? Does that sound good?
Yeah, I like all board members because, you know,
Yeah.
it's pretty explicit that, you know, of course you're gonna talk to him more than
Yeah.
some of the other board members, but I think,
Right.
you know, having that open door for any one of us to have dialogue.
Okay, so in the next page, I think this was stuff I took really more just directly from somebody, from the other
The
park district.
competencies or competencies? or-
Yes.
Okay.
So these were really just taken from the other board district.
Cool.
So the board relations thing is here. Works collaboratively with the board, fosters trust and builds cooperative relationships between board and staff, responsive to board member requests, keeps board abreast of important matters, offers fully developed recommendations to board for action, responsiveness to board's questions and requests for information, preparation for board meeting. I mean, I think these are all really well developed because that other guy did it. So,
Yeah. And all of them can include the conversation. I mean, that was a piece that I'm glad Patrick was able to come in an understanding where he was able to acknowledge that this form that we're using, even though he kind of objected to it, that he recognizes that this helps in the conversation. I mean, this does not preclude conversations with Brian at all. It's a
no, a
collaborative
lot of
effort.
a lot of these came from what his list was.
Yeah,
So it's
Yeah.
not like I just created this out of thin air.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I think we're good on that.
And thank you. You know, change for anybody is hard.
True.
It is,
True.
any organization. And this is
Yes.
just part of that, this is a little bit of a change.
Mhm.
And I do believe, you know, years from now, when you're visiting a board meeting someday as a non-commissioner, because Ann said she's not going to run next year, so this is her last term. This is your second term, right?
Right, right.
I think you're going to find that this is something that will be very helpful for the district. Thank you.
I hope so. Good. All right, do you guys want to talk a little bit about the budget?
Oh, yeah, I have to use the bathroom, no?
Okay.
How's your daughter doing?
Which one?
The one out in, she out in California?
Oh, she's in New York this
New York.
semester.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was there visiting last weekend, so it was very fun.
Yeah.
She's doing great. You know, she's in this program that she loves there at NYU. and
Yeah.
She's really been immersed in it, so it's been a really good thing for her. So, and then she got an internship for the summer out there. So that's good. So she's not going to come and work at the beach, which she's a little bit bummed about on some level.
Would she
I bet.
lifeguard?
She was a camp counselor at the
Oh, yeah.
aquatics camp,
Oh, okay.
which she loved.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's your daughter doing?
Oh, she's in chorus line right now.
Oh, cool.
So Thursday was opening night. She was, I mean, unbelievable. So.
Who, Marta?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she's got a performance tonight. We're actually having a big discussion around college today. So with
Oh,
her
my.
and
Oh, she hasn't decided?
she hasn't decided, and we're just like, you know.
It's coming up.
We need some.
The
I don't know,
deadline is
she might-
coming.
Deadline is coming up, and you know whether or not she's going to take a gap year and what she's going to,
Okay.
you know, that kind of stuff.
So not
you know.
decided if she's gonna do that or not.
Right.
Okay.
Well, whether you know, we don't think she's quite. She might not be quite ready to just jump into school again. She might need a. But yeah, and or does she get a talent agent and just kind of, you know, go
Yeah.
pro?
Wow.
I don't know.
Or maybe try it
So-
out at least for a while?
Try it out for a while and see if
Uh-huh.
you really, you know, she's all over that idea. So Dad's been talking in 1 year, Mom's been talking another year, and of course she's a senior and she's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what?
So
That is
we're-
a tough year. I was
Oh my.
telling so
gosh.
many people how
So-
Christine has come, you know, it's been about 180 since
Okay.
senior year.
Okay.
And so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
They're not really
Well, it's
that
nice to
pleasant.
hear.
They're not that pleasant senior year.
I mean, her and
What's
Mom
not
just-
pleasant?
Her and Mom just.
A
well,
senior, yeah.
Oh.
that's how I
A
was
senior.
growing up.
Just like.
Yeah, it's
It's
bad.
like, who are you? Mom's awful, and I'm kind of the.
I was awful
dad.
too,
I'm like-
apparently.
I'm like, oh boy. So anyway, so yeah, we're battling all that. So we got a big meeting coming up. She's like, as soon as you're done, come home. She's got a show tonight, of course. So.
Okay, yeah, so she's gonna
Yeah.
get ready.
But yeah, so they're like spotty tickets left because they did it in. I mean, it's a heavy show. I forgot Chorus Line was so. You know, it's all about making it on Broadway. You know, in the Chorus Line. So it's her life.
Uh-huh.
Like if you get picked, she's like,
Yeah, it's
Oh
tough. It's
my-
a rough business, that's for sure.
oh man, yeah. You just hear about it from some of the pros and some of the professors that were in it before, and they're telling you, you know, the hard knocks, you know, the money, all the rest of the craziness that's out there with it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Broadway, yeah. So anyway,
I give them a lot of credit though for trying to do it, for trying to do it at least for a
Oh, yeah.
while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
all right.
All right,
Right.
so let's have a conversation about the budget. The biggest change in the budget, obviously, is putting Natalie to full-time.
Mhm.
And also with benefits. So that's about a $20,000 change.
Mhm.
So somehow we've been able to find those dollars, which, you know, I think our revenues are up because there's been more classes. I see but there have been changes, like building improvement here on your corporate fund on the first page. We had projected 20,000 for this year, and it's down to 10,000 the following year, for next year. So that's a big change. So
Is that
that's
recreational fund or corporate?
That's corporate fund.
Sorry.
So that's something that, you know, with all this conversation that we've had, is, you know, kind of a big number.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, we're having to find those dollars somewhere. So, and that's what Brian said. He says, you know, we gotta take stuff out. I mean, and throughout the budget, you'll see that there's some,
We'll pick here or
you
there.
know, little things, $500 here, $500 there.
Right.
But we, as a group, just said, you know, we want to see 10,000 go to this art studio, or, you know, something else.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I don't think that really takes into account any other sort of renovations throughout
Right.
the district. So that's where I guess I see a little bit of an issue as far as just the balancing of dollars. And so I feel like, you know, for me, the accountability issue is big. It's like if we're gonna be hiring this person full-time, I think we need to have some increased expectations. Because, I mean, 20,000 is a lot. I mean, because with benefits and salary, it's gonna be an additional 20,000.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so what benefits is that gonna bring the Park District?
Right.
So, I thought it would have been interesting, like, to get like a pie chart to see, like, okay, this is where everything's going. You know, kind of just see kind of like where we're heavy, where we're light, that kind of thing.
Yep. And that's something I'll bet you Jerry could provide us at a board meeting, because that's a pretty simple, you know, computer application.
Yeah, I think we have QuickBooks, so
Yeah.
we could actually
It's all
look at it
spreadsheet
in that
stuff.
way.
He could pie chart for us. And I also think Jerry would be really good with Brian's assistance to think about where that 10 or 20,000, excuse me, $10,000 we're talking about for the arts building for next budget, where that could come from. I mean, they'll have to help us with that to figure out where.
Well, apparently it's
I
there.
mean, yeah, it's,
I mean, they've worked it out.
Mm.
yeah,
But there's
Oh,
not.
you mean building improvement, that's,
10 grand, yeah.
oh, well, that's a question I think we should bring up. I'm not assuming
That would
the
be for
10,
the
that,
arts.
right, see, building improvement means all kinds of stuff.
Well, in fact.
New shingles,
In
But
fact, I think
deciding where
I
it
think they've got
goes
the
is on
smaller
us.
categories.
That's right, that's
They've
right.
got the smaller categories here in the back.
Now, let's see what it says.
Or
CA 51?
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, it's not that at all.
Yeah.
It's 3,000 for that.
Sliding, right,
Oh, okay, then we only need 7,000
sliding
more.
repair.
Right, so we
And
need
that's
7,000.
right, and that's a discussion I think Jerry and Brian could help us with.
Right, so that's something that we want to ask.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's other stuff that, you know, I kind of asked about, but we probably should go like, you know, I don't know if we have to do it today, but go through kind of category by category. There was stuff that I had questions about, like communication advisor wages. That's gone from 1,500 to 500. I mean, I don't even know that Mike is actually doing that anymore. I mean, I had understood that.
I think he just puts some of this down to, I mean,
In
Brian
case.
does as a just in case. That's been my interpretation of, you know, him and Jerry getting together going, all right, I'll just put this down as this. We've done this in the past, so this year it may have looked this way.
So it's there just in case.
Just in case. I think that's
Okay.
one of those, you know, JICs, right?
Okay.
So I think if we make our own notes on a just in case, I think we need to follow the budget like Brian does and kind of go, okay, all right, here's where Brian's head is on some of this stuff. I think it just kind of arbitrarily kind of throws some stuff up there to, you know, and that's the way he's done it, and it's worked.
Right. Well, for instance, the program that you were talking about, the basketball program.
Yes.
And so, like, how does that look in this budget? Like, where are those funds going to come from? And what funds would we want to put towards that?
Well, we're only doing, you know, and I remind you, we're only doing, I mean, it's been cut down. I wanted 3 days. I wanted
Uh-huh.
3 day at least, you know, or in the summer, it's been cut down to 1 day. It went 2 days on another day because we had a rain delay, and it's been cut down to 1 day. And it's not a very expensive program at all, because we already have the staff in place that are, you know, at the parks.
Right.
So it's just been a little bit of equipment. Like, we had to buy basketballs. I had to, like, at a meeting, I think someone made a motion to buy balls. It's like, okay, we need basketballs.
Sort of basic.
Basic stuff. You know, a little scoreboard, or I mean, it's not much. And then you can either pay referees or you can have volunteer referees. I mean, there's a few different ways to go about it. But what I at least, and you know, there's trophies. I always want to give the kids something to walk away with. And I'm
Sure.
charging for this program too.
Okay.
I think it should be the way I did it in the past was every kid pays $5 or $10.
Got to be some buy-in.
It's got to be buy-in. And kids, I mean, they spend that at the corner store.
That's right.
You
Of
know,
course,
in
yeah.
a month, I don't care how poor you are. I see a majority of kids with a big bag of hot Cheetos in their hand. All right, if you can get that, that's
That's
you
a
know,
$1.50.
a $1.50 at the store. You can come up with $5 or $6 or whatever for a program. Now I could write that out. I could write that whole program out how I see it.
Yeah.
And present it to the board and say, hey, I'd like you to be a little bit closer to this. And I know someone who can execute that too. I just want to see it done.
That would be
And,
helpful to write it out, actually.
You know, how I see it and go, okay. And it's a very minimal amount, but you have buy-in. This is not all about, just offering a free program for the kids in the neighborhood. No, this is a way to come and engage with the park and engage in a very fruitful way. If we partner with Northwestern, we can have their basketball team kind of come out, you know, and I can make a couple different versions of that, a version with them in it and a version without. But that's where I kind of butt heads with our executive director, because I'm like, what are we doing? I'd like for the person that's in charge of basketball for the two parks, Ridgeville that has the full court, and you can do, and all I'm talking about is half court, 3-on-3 stuff. At both parks, you have those things going. And anyway, I can write that up.
That would be, I think,
Yeah.
I personally think written documents are helpful.
Got it. All right.
Okay.
I'll do
Right,
that.
You're gonna write that up, because that might change where we have some of these
Okay.
Yep.
budget items.
In answer to your question, Ann, on the extra cost for the full-time program director, I do believe she will pay her work, her extra work will pay for itself. I think it's a great investment. I think her being full-time will bring in more programming, actually, and facilitate more revenue.
But do we need to ask in advance, we would like to see increases by this, or we'd like to see these grants applied to, or,
I think that's fair.
And it has to be, because of role clarification, our communication with Brian. That's a Brian thing. So he's got to communicate with his staff what we're expecting. But it's not
Okay.
us telling her directly, because that's not
Right.
our role.
right. But I guess my feeling is that there would be some more of that.
Absolutely.
As far as increased
Absolutely.
programs or,
Yep.
and I think measurable is always good. You know.
And I do think that, Brian's staff, they don't have to do it alone. I mean, there's ways I think board members could help with that, or people we know could help with that. There just has to be an openness to let us help in grant
You
writing.
certainly have wanted to help with the basketball.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you've been on enough boards, you're good at raising money, and you know how that works. There's ways we could do it. So,
yeah.
but there has to be an openness, and there has to be a good trust in the community's, and what we're doing. That it's
Right.
going to go well. The money's going to be a good investment.
Right. So with something like that, as we go forward with the budget, is this something that we want to bring up at the meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Then?
Sure.
Just kind of how we see that rolling out?
Absolutely.
Okay. So that should be like a request in a written statement, or just a conversation?
I think a conversation is a good way to start. And
Uh-huh.
then I do think in executive session with Brian is to spell it out as part of his evaluation.
Okay. What about other things in the budget? You guys, do you see anything that we need to think about, or?
I like your idea of having a pie chart, just another way to look at our budget.
Uh-huh.
And if our buddy Jerry could do that for us, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I just feel like, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22, because I would like to see us grow programs, and, I know we need the staff to do that, but I do feel like we're kind of heavy in the personnel side of our to only have $10,000 for,
Yeah.
building up our park, our actual equipment, our facilities is not, that's a small percentage of our budget.
Right.
So that's the only problem I'd say I have with this budget.
Yep. Yep.
And that's been for more than this year.
Uh-huh.
That's been ongoing.
Right. And it has been a frustration in that I feel like we can't do much. We have to depend on these community block development grants. We have to depend on, and I feel like in some ways it should be more part of, it's like having a savings account, really.
Yeah. I do believe, Ann, that what your leadership's bringing to our district, this strategic planning idea, a big fruit of that will be just this, that our budget will grow from that. Because through the strategic planning, it helps the board members act more and do more work between meetings. It helps clarify what we want out of our staff, okay, which means they'll also do the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're going to see, if we continue on this strategic planning, that we will grow financially as a district, which means more programs and more money for capital improvement. The other piece to that is that it builds community trust. And so if we do need to go to a point where we have to have a bond, which is part of, one of our options to raise money,
Mm-hmm.
then we would probably get the support from the community if it was a good thing. For example, last year at Evanston, District 65 needed a referendum to pay, for some
Right.
extra things and to not lay off some of their staff. The community here in Evanston supported that $35 million referendum, 85%.
That's huge.
And I think the reason, I know it's unheard of,
They
I
scared
think
us
the
to death.
reason that happened was because the district did a really good job of developing trust in the community and communicating what that money was for. So all I'm saying is that what you're offering us in this strategic planning and communicating is bringing us up, I guess, into a more enlightened 21st century Parks and Rec, and that people will see that and want to be a part of that and invest in it.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, and also I'm excited to see more of the 28,000 kind of get involved, and know about Ridgeville, and like, oh man, really?
Mm-hmm.
Just what if more than the little, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 that we serve.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just throwing a
Yeah.
number out there on a regular basis. What if that turned into, because if more people knew about it, what if we were actually serving 6,000 or 7,000 people?
Mm-hmm.
Actual numbers that actually not only solicit our programs, but are an active part of even this. The fact that no one's here, not one, whether it be opposition or, I think
One
it's
constituent, yeah.
one constituent that was interested in, oh man, how does Ridgeville work? And I know there's some people who would get interested if we were, I think, doing more or getting better at that. So anyway, I just want to encourage that and encourage you too to keep leading this way. We only got you for another year.
And another piece of my optimistic view of where we're headed with this strategic planning is that it encourage all the stakeholders not to work in a vacuum. It's not just on Brian, for instance, to do all this. It's not just on Natalie. It's not just on one board member. All of us are part of this. And,
Yeah,
a
right.
lot of
And
boards
I
that a lot of boards that I'm on, there's an expectation you do 5 to 10 hours between meetings of volunteer work of some sort. Maybe writing a grant or being on a committee or talking to constituents, doing something. I've never felt that from our board, and so I hope that as we move forward, we can start nudging each other a little bit to do more. Like you did. You've done a ton of work between meetings.
Well, also, I do think it's the communication. I feel like, something I learned from Pat today is just, I really was having a hard time why he was so against that document. But then I think what I heard him say was, that it's got to be a two-way street. And I think that is something that we do need to keep in mind and have the communication. And, you know, and maybe we assign each other, okay, you're going to touch base, this month with Natalie, for instance, or, just, because we all get busy and, we don't have time to do stuff. But if we, had a certain thing that we were going to kind of focus on, and to hear, what their struggles are. I mean, I've talked to Natalie many times about, it's rough trying to get those classes to run. I am very sympathetic of that, and she's done a very good job putting stuff out there.
Yep.
So, I feel bad sometimes because I feel like I'm the, let's get more programs, but, it's a give and take. I realize that.
You've seen it done, and you know it can get done. And you're like, and I know, and you want us to be able to achieve that.
Right.
And
right.
That's hoping.
Yeah, but at the same time, I know that some of these tasks are tough. Yeah. So, all right, I think we can wrap this part up and go into our executive session.
Oh, there it is.
I move that we come out of the executive session and go back into the special meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move that we close our special session meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. We are now concluded.